Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Members of Parliament have voted to approve the proposed amendments in 24 items in the Finance Bill 2023 as recommended by the Budget Committee. In the Committee of the Whole House, the MPs okayed recommendations of the Finance Committee while voting on each item.
Honourable Speaker, I beg to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2023 up to clause 24 and approve the same with amendments and seek leave to sit again tomorrow.
Today.
And seek leave to sit again later today, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, I propose the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. I confirm that we have the requisite quorum. I'll now put the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it.
The MPs approved many of the amendments presented by the chairperson of the Budget Committee, Kimani Korea. The controversial affordable housing levy was amended to 1.5% from 3% deduction by both the employee and the employer. The proposals by Seme MP James Newcall to have the 5% deductions on online content creators be scrapped off was denied, meaning that artists and content creators will now be charged 5% from the payments they get.
These are strugglers. These are the hustlers. Imagine. These are the real hustlers, not the ones you're pretending to be hustlers.
For starters, what is proposed in the bill is withholding tax of 15%. So we have made them at par at 5%.
Just like any other profession. In fact, their biggest argument was that it should be reduced from the 15% that had been initially proposed.
Imposing on them the 15% down to 5%, I still feel we are not being very fair to this category of digital monetizers.
It should be noted that the Finance Bill has a total of 88 items and various taxes proposed to finance the bill. Now, Parliament is expected to return to session today to continue voting on the remaining 68 items. Now, Azimio Party leader Raila Odinga is now demanding an explanation from the Kenya Kwanza government over the alleged borrowing of 213.4 billion shillings just a week before the beginning of the new financial year. Odinga questioned the President William Ruto-led administration of what he termed as suspicious borrowing, saying that the state should come clean regarding the new debt. And Healthy Susan Wahomicha has maintained that she'll do everything humanly possible to restore sanity in the health sector. Appearing before the Parliamentary Health Committee, the CS revealed how small hospitals conspire to defraud the National Health Insurance Fund. Wahomicha further called on the committee to support her move to get rid and clean up the rot in NHIF.
Chair and honorable members, it will shock you that of the payments we made this month after having delays from Exchequer for a long time, the top facility to be paid is one that we have suspended. And in all honesty, and I am yet to be convinced, that you will have a small private facilities doing more surgeries than Kenyatta, than Moi, than KU, all these public facilities combined. We have some small health, and it is not the Aga Khans, the Nairobis, and the big currents that you hear about. There is a problem. And we can only solve this problem together with you members. I'm seeking your support, that you be with me on this one. Unfortunately, there are going to be casualties, but please be with me.
This event comes as one of the hospitals facing probe into medical fund. The JKM Hospital in Meru has been closed. 90 CS Kathuriki says the ongoing differences between the IG Javadcom and the National Police Service following the promotion of police officers is unnecessary. Appearing before the Parliamentary Security Committee, Kindiki said he'd even taken it upon himself to approach both officials on the matter.
I have made it clear to those two institutions that that process must be regularized within the law, whatever that means, and it must be done not in the public glare, so that we don't erode further the esteem, dignity, and public confidence in our institutions of national security.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
The man who looks at a beautiful girl and doesn't talk to her will end up serving lunch at her wedding.
Aye, City. Do like that. My father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man? Ameua panya. Small mammal, big mammal. Mtu atamshinda. What are they saying?
How are we comparison? I mean, you kill a mouse.
What are they saying? What they're saying is, my father has killed a mouse. Will he fail to kill a man? Name, surprise. Someone's name.
The name surprised you?
No, the name is surprise.
No, what am I saying? I'm from Nigeria, man. I met somebody called I Believe. So
See?
Your name is I Believe? Yes, my name is I Believe. But that's the short form. I said, excuse me? I said, yes, my name is I Believe. So what's the full name? I believe in the goodness of
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much, Eric, and it's good to be at the Situation Room.
Always a pleasure coming here. This is the most challenging interview panel in Kenya. You guys are very well informed, and as you can see, Charles today, very philosophical.
To be poor in this country is the greatest sin you can commit, not just from a legal perspective, but from life generally. It is very, very skewed.
We've just heard on the floor of Parliament, just most recently, a leader within the ODM saying that Sisi ni ng'ombe is a baba.
Yeah.
Which means that you are willing to be milked dry.
You cannot force me to believe. I'll give way. If it's land that I'm told to return to you, I will. Okay? Because the court has said so. But I'll continue saying, watu wamenirusha. That's all that I'm doing.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Good morning. What are we looking at? Nairobi, and not much happening on these streets. Not for now. There's a little bit of traffic on Mombasa Road, and it's going to head out towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. Not quite sure what's holding that up right now, but we're seeing a bit of packing up happening right there. Coming off of Thika Superhighway, a little bit of it is building up as you get towards the Pangani underpass, but it's nothing that you won't be able to handle, at least not for now. Folks are getting up and at 'em today. It's Wednesday, in the middle of the week. What's it going to look like? Let's talk through the morning. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Spice FM, Malindi. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up.
It's Wednesday, 21st day of June 2023, 9 minutes after 6. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. City, how you doing?
I'm actually very well, thank you, sir.
Very good. Very good, very good. I see you have that jacket on. It's feeling cold this morning.
It's cold.
It's cold, eh?
And yet I have upped my exercise routine. Yes. So that...
but that's not making the days warmer. What's wrong with this weather?
What it does, it makes you sleep very soundly. Because exercise in the evening, you sleep soundly.
Kabisa.
A man like a baby.
For how many minutes do you exercise?
I exercise for something like an hour.
Well,
Yes.
1 hour. Very good.
First of all, stretch, some 10, 15 minutes stretching too.
until the tingly things come to an end.
The tingly mingly.
Yes, tingly mingly.
Tops.
Then
Pingly.
I go for a walk. Then after I've gone for that walk, I now do a little cardio. I go up a hill at pace until you breathe through your eyes. Then you walk down again. Then you do that a couple of times and you time it. Yes, and then you give your body time to. Then you walk slowly back. It's good.
And then you stretch.
No, after I finish that, I don't stretch. I simply walk, stand, pace until I feel the body has cooled down a bit. And I sit somewhere and read.
And you fall asleep?
No, I'm just reading.
Okay.
Then you have a shower. Then you read a little bit more. Then you sleep. Man, you sleep. It's like when you wake up, it's like you shut your eyes and then open them within that small same space.
You don't know where you've just come from.
Time just goes whoop. One moment you're thinking you're going to sleep, the next moment you're awake and you're thinking, where did the hours go? But it's good.
That's very good. Ndu, how are you?
Fine, thank
you. How do you exercise?
I swim.
Good.
But I'm a bit upset because the weather's going to be really cold in a few weeks and I will not be able to unless I go to a heated pool.
Oh, don't you have a heated pool? Don't you have a heated pool?
So the heated pool where I go to sometimes has people. Swimming for exercise. I don't like to be around people.
Okay. You like to be alone.
During the week, don't have many people.
But it's heated.
Yes.
Is it open at night?
I don't know.
You could make arrangements.
Oh, but at night, then you have to come here in the morning.
Yeah.
Swimming takes the mickey out of you, man. By the time you finish, you're tired. And the night.
See, night is only 7. The people are gone.
Actually, I think about it too.
Haya, mimi pia niko salama.
Ngoja nikuulize kwanza.
Hi,
Eric.
Hi.
How are you this morning?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Hiya, everybody. Habari yenu. Let me tell you what we'll be discussing today at 8 a.m. So, parliamentarians stayed until, what time did they finish? I fell asleep and let them going on. I was like, okay. Fanyeni kazi, at least for one's annual salary. Well, it's not that they don't earn the other days, but it's okay.
Did you see Babo Wino and Rocco?
Yeah. What are they doing?
They were standing behind.
Oh, they were agents.
Somebody calls Eric Latiff, they will appoint.
They were agents.
Okay, he's there. What's your vote? Then they make sure in the computer. It was crazy. And they make sure in the computer that actually, yes, next to Eric Latiff's name is a no. Or next to Eric Latiff's name is a yes. Then they say, They took over the process. They are the ones now who are saying, Gladys Boshole next. It's quite common. It was very interesting to watch.
Agents.
They were agents. Yeah.
That's good. It's called democracy.
Indeed.
In fact, I was watching it and I was thinking, have we actually reached that point where even in Parliament, even on a matter such as this, where everybody is just, and the clerks who are working are basically working as professionals, but you have to sit there and supervise them and make sure that what they have captured is what has been said.
Yes, because Mago can happen anywhere, my friends.
This is a very bad place to be.
Imagine it's not good, but
it's a very bad place to be. It is a very bad place to be. Anyway, let me tell you. So, at 8 a.m., we have invited Wangari Moikia. She's an economist and a public finance management specialist with EGCL Institute. She'll be coming here to tell us about the repercussions of the Finance Bill 2023. And then at 9 a.m., let's talk about local borrowing and 16% coupon rates. Is the economy on the verge of collapsing? So, the government is going to the market and has issued a bond. And they are issuing it at 16%. Other previous ones have been at much lower than that. 13. So, if you have another one that's in the market at 16%, what has that done to the 11 one? It's devaluing it, isn't it? Yep. So Dr. Alex Kamau is a business consultant and a lecturer, a university lecturer. He joins us at 9 a.m. to have that conversation with us and tell us what's going on. Keep it here for that. We are live streaming the show on YouTube and Facebook. At 6:15, we want to take a look at weather, and then we will acknowledge your presence where you're tuned in from. So go on to Facebook, go on to YouTube and say hello. We will say hello shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Conditions in Nairobi, highs of 22 and lows of 14. We'll see lows of 15 in a cloudy in Nakuru at 16, going to highs of 25. It's cloudy at 15 in Nyeri, highs of 21 and lows of 14. And at 14, it's cloudy in Eldoret, highs of 23 and lows of 13. It's mostly clear at 23 in Mombasa, highs of 29. And 30 will be the high in a partly cloudy Malindi at 25. Light rain showers in Kisumu this morning at 20, highs of 29. And it's cloudy at 17 in Kakamega, highs of 27 and lows of 17. Partly cloudy conditions out in Kampala at 18, highs of 27. And it's clear, at least for now, in Dar es Salaam at 23 with highs of 30. We'll see lows of 23. 5 degrees and clear in Johannesburg, highs of 18 and lows of 4. While Lagos is mostly cloudy at 26, we'll see highs of 29. It's fairly cloudy in Kinshasa at 20, highs of 31. Wednesday afternoon is sunny at 33 in Beijing. It will go to highs of 40 today and lows of 22. It's mostly cloudy at 19 in Paris and cloudy at 16 in London. Partly cloudy at 19 in New York. Coming into Wednesday, we'll see highs of 22 and lows of 16.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done
17
right.
minutes after
94.4.
Morris Monye Oyando says, good morning, Team TSR. Greetings from Ombei. Ombei is somewhere. Kisumu County.
Yes.
We've had some good rain the past few days. Monday night, rain came as 3 in 1. Okay. Is that a thing?
Well, Morris, nice to hear from you. Trust you are well.
Tell CT that not all hope is lost at home. In 2 weeks, we start milling our own maize and avoid the supermarkets.
That's good to hear, Morris.
Morris and CT, you have greeted each other. All right. Soroti City in Uganda is where Oporo is listening in from this morning. Kimi Lily is tuned in. Amos Freeman, good morning to you. Anthony Mwadilo says, good morning. Good morning to you. Everybody tuning in today. Okay. Sophia Damari says, good morning, good people from UAE. Rose Grace is tuning in from Siaya Kababa. Gashauri is saying, good morning, Ndu, Eric and CT. Greetings from the UK. Thanks for keeping us informed. Asante sana. Smart guy, okay, is tuning from Thika. Good morning. All is well in Dubai, according to Soulful. Davis Indio says, good morning, greetings from Atequat. There's a place with a K and an O scratched through. Looks like it could be in Norway. Davis, where are you? Mkubwa Nyumbani, that's what you call yourself, says good morning from Perth in Australia. David Peter Munya is tuned in and said, good morning, Ndu. Omo. When somebody says Omo, it's either very good or very bad. Mm-hmm. He says it's 6 a.m. and the sun is out. It is 32 degrees in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia.
That's a bit hot, isn't it?
Omo at 6 in the morning? Absolutely. The sun has not even come up properly.
Imagine.
And it's 32. What will happen when it's 2 o'clock?
So these guys are they near the equator or they're on it exactly?
Are they in the sun? That's the question. He says, Salimu Bwana Sitina Eric. Dixon Kiprono. I'm just going to say it out loud. Good morning, beautiful Ndu. Oh, good morning to you. Say hi to the seasoned man in black and the proverbial man in blue. Misalimiwa. Thank you very much. Tuned in for the biggest conversation in the land. Asante Sana. Good morning, Spice FM team. Interesting points from CT, especially on his exercises, since he falls under the geriatric community. I tell you what?
Not far.
It makes you.
I thought for a moment he was going to say prehistoric.
Hello, Eric Kumba from Washington, D.C. Your namesake, Anakusalimia. Washington. All right. Tuned in from Imara Daima. That's where Emmanuel is, the other Washington. Good morning, my friends. Honorable Eric. You've been bequeathed. Honorable.
Mheshimiwa.
So we should start calling you like that.
Yes.
Don't worry. There's a time and place for everything.
Be happy.
Good morning, my friend. And it says keep doing the Lord's work. Extremely hot in Texas. Yes, it is. Elkanah Rotich said he's tuned in this morning. CT Eric Ndu listening from Bomet. Good morning, tuned in from Sacramento in California. Ready for some interesting, intelligent conversations. Top of the morning, Ndu, CT and Eric tuned in from Kileleshwa. Good morning to you. Minneapolis, Minnesota is where Ruth Karenga is. Priska's tuned in this morning. Leah Sifuma says hi. Tuning from the White Highlands of Kenya. Where are those?
Where? The White Highlands.
Telling you. And on the Qatar border, somebody else says, good morning.
Qatar with?
Border with?
Hapana, usi Qatar. Tunasema Qatar. The border of Qatar. I don't know border with whom.
Yeah.
She didn't say. She just said on the Qatar border.
With the Gulf or with Saudi Arabia?
Border.
Border, Jua too.
All right. We have arrested. Tumeshika.
Sasa our wote. They have greeted us and greeted you, and they said, "Acha sasa tuongea pamoja."
And we thank them and greet them and tell them, "How are you doing?
How are you? How are you?
How are you?
How is your? How are you?"
Yes.
How what? Very, very good. Everybody, karibuni sana kwa mpango wa leo. City. The proverb.
Yes, from the country of Kenya. No matter how tall your grandfather is, you have to do your own growing.
Really?
Let me just repeat it because dude did not seem to have heard it. No matter how tall your grandfather is, you have to do your own growing.
Yako ni yako.
Yako ni yako.
Okay. Okay. Very good. That's a good one. What shall we hear what people will say when they come to visit us? Let's look at the headlines.
Let's do it. On the front page of the Standard. Levy. Ruto tightens the noose on employers. In last-minute changes in the finance bill, government slaps employers with a fine if they don't remit the house tax to KRA within 9 days after deducting from staff salaries, a measure to ring-fence the fund. All right. Now, in the middle of the headlines is probably a story. There's a circus at KEMSA, and we don't know who's wearing the red nose and the big floppy shoes, but the new CEO is accused of being a center of tender cancellation. A few weeks after President Ruto appointed a fresh team, it emerged that the new Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Andrew Mulwa, was aware of the proposal to alter 3.7 billion shillings tender documents, which resulted in a row that led to the sacking of PS Josephine Mboro. We'll look into that story. Senator files censure motion on CS Courier. Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna has gone to court, and he says if approved, Courier risks being declared unfit to hold public office, a move that could trigger the process of removing him from President Ruto's cabinet. Okay. Kenya to join lucrative world of 3T minerals. We'll look at that. It's a special report on 6 and 7. And on the front page of The Nation, I'll look at one of the smaller headlines, but probably one that has the largest weight. Or rather, yes, confusion as some schools fail to get capitation money. My friend.
Schools are failing to get capitation money?
They have not received.
Okay.
They have not received money because I don't know, money didn't come from Treasury.
Tell us why.
Let's see. Ruto's MP steal show in the House. And then a more important story, a country of poor people. Rural poverty is at 13,700,000. Urban poverty is at 5,400,000. Yesterday we did see Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja open another feeding point for children in school and said, we're forgetting about urban poverty. It is a thing. And there's a report here that talks about some of those things. On the back page of The Nation, Kindiki calls Kome NPSC to order in promotions dispute. He's basically said, excuse me, come to the principal's office. Why should you people be fighting? Who promoted who did not go where? Come and tell me what's going on. Let's sort this thing out and do it now. That's what I have.
That's what you have? I have the Business Daily with me, and the headline is Facebook caught up in payroll tax evasion claim in Kenya. The fight between social media giant Facebook and its employees in Nairobi has taken a new turn after its workers moderating content on Meta's platforms, including WhatsApp, accused the firm's local agent of falsifying pay slips. and failing to remit deducted tax for at least 4 years. Whee. The Business Daily has learned that the moderators have also filed an official complaint to the Kenya Revenue Authority asking the taxman to investigate the tax evasion claim in their latest grievance against the social media company. The workers have written to KRA to carry out an urgent investigation on the non-remittance of what? Of pay-as-you-earn, an altered summary of the annual tax deduction form by their employer, Somersource Kenya, EPZ. Guy.
Where?
To back their claim, the moderators have presented to the KRA payslips and P9 forms that suggest that the payee deducted from their salaries differs from the figures reflected on the tax forms. They say Sama emailed them recently to file a tax return for income earned last year. Copies of the payslips and the P9 forms seen by the Business Daily show that the effective date for KRA pins of some of the workers was December 2021, but Sama has been deducting the monthly pay of between 10,375 and 51,157 from as far back as 2020. Bas. Sema kimeumana.
Kimeumana.
Mambo imechemuka. Hey. Higher. The other headline: Chinese firm in Kenya made smartphones. Project revealed. Okumuka, in 6 months' time, we'll be doing our own phones. 6 months are here. Chinese mobile devices dealer Shenzhen Tele1 Technology is partnering telecoms operator Safaricom and Jamii Telecoms in a project to set up a manufacturing plant for low-cost smartphones in Kenya. Safaricom Chief Corporate Affairs Officer Stephen Kiptines told the Business Daily that the three-member consortium is at an advanced stage of setting up the assembly plant, which is key to implementing President William Ruto's plan to produce Africa's cheapest smartphones locally. The consortium is closing out the loose ends around this investment. It is my understanding that the manufacturing should start within the next 2 months. Manufacturing will start within the next 2 months. So when Ruto was saying 6 months, which is now, this is what he meant.
That will start.
We'll now sign deals and we'll have consortium ready. We'll have the framework.
Okay.
The thing is that you people don't understand the president.
Okay, because so now when he said in 6 months we'll have our own mobile phone, what he meant is that it's not the actual Kenyan phone you'll be holding in your hand. What they will do is that they will start writing paper. Okay. No, it's good. No, Allah.
When you say I'm going to Mombasa at 6 a.m., right? It doesn't mean I'll be in Mombasa at 6.
It means you will start going at 6. Oh, and whenever you reach is whenever you reach.
Yeah, now it depends on other things, other factors. But the thing is, umeingia kwa basi. So tumeingia basi, that is what basically is happening. No, maneno.
And the bus is going to Mombasa?
The bus is going to Mombasa.
Where it will pass through is not your concern. Just know.
The number of stops it will have, those are stories. Okay.
We are going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are the main headlines in the Business Daily. City. What's on the Star?
In the Star.
How many stars do you have?
Top right-hand corner in teal green. Turf war. Kindiki, IG Kome, NPS seeking their risks removal over public spat. This is a story on page 7. Going around arguing with your boss. What happens? Okay. Right. Game of numbers. Ruto team bulldozes their way to impose proposed levies. High finance bill will hurt you. All right. Implications to be felt from next month when government begins to implement measures. Okay. Then there are details of the hikes and what will happen and so forth. Then at the bottom, Mafia House. I think this is with reference to Afia House. KEMSA and NHF scams could claim more big names. Okay? Right. Questionable surgeries. NHF acting CEO Samson Kuhora. Mosquito tender. KEMSA acting CEO Andrew Molwa. They are right in the eye of this particular storm.
Storm?
Yeah, but with these things, one has to go into the details because if you just listen to what is being said, you will start apportioning blame perhaps where there are none.
Yeah.
Okay? Headlines sometimes may not tell you the whole story.
Yeah.
So we'll look into the story and see what exactly happened, who did what, who said what, when, and so forth and so forth.
Okay.
Yes.
So we take a break now? 6:30. Let's look at traffic and then we'll look at those stories in detail.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up done right. 94.4.
Boo County. There's traffic on the Thika Superhighway all the way into the CBD this morning, moving slowly as you get towards the Pangani underpass. Is bumper to bumper, but the service lanes are looking pretty good. There's an option for you to use. Juja Road is packing up as well, and we're looking at traffic heavy on Kangunda Road. Not quite sure what's going on there, but we'll see. Mombasa Road had a little spot of traffic as you're approaching the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, and it's likely to get heavier as we go along. We have some traffic on Juga Road and a little bit of it then spilling over towards Likoni Road, and that's for now. That will definitely build up. Gong Road is not doing too poorly. Folks are getting in and out without an issue. Limuru Road also is looking good. Looks like this is the time to get off Limuru Road if you need to through the morning. What's happening where you are? It's been a minute. Tell us, Spice FMKE on Twitter, and let's keep things moving this Wednesday morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
I want to tell you about the KEMSA issue, but I want to tell you about education as well. And so let's go to these students who, unfortunately, the schools rather, that have not received money. There's confusion is what they're calling it, as some schools fail to get capitation money. How, you ask, is that possible? Okay. Confusion abounds in the recent disbursement of capitation funds to schools, with some principals saying the amount is not enough, while others claim their schools did not receive any money at all. School heads who spoke said that they are still in the throes of biting financial crisis, despite the Ministry of Education releasing money a week ago. While school administrators complain that the money sent was less than what they were expecting, it's understood that heads of institutions that did not receive cash have failed to acknowledge receipt of the funds they received in January on the National Education Management Information System. I will read that again, in case you missed it.
So, Matena.
Heads of institutions that did not receive cash had failed to acknowledge receipt of the funds they received in January on NEMIS. So the question is that a reason why they did not receive this time?
So in January, they did not acknowledge receipts.
Yes. So remember, in January, the money that was sent in January was to cover a hole for money that was not sent in term 3 of 2022. Okay? Now, according to the system, the people who did not receive money this time did not acknowledge the money that they received in January. And everybody has the similar narrative. The people who have not received money this time, if they go back and check, according to them, there is no acknowledgement in the system, and there is a provision for acknowledgement in NEMIS. Okay? Kenya Secondary School Heads Association Chairperson Ndimuli Kai said the complaints were genuine, as they had expected to receive about 9,000 per pupil, but instead got 4,150. A circular signed by Basic Education Principal Secretary Belio Kipsang on June 14th confirms the amount disbursed. According to the PS, the funds are for the first term of 2023. We are in what term? Second term. And the third quarter of the 2022-2023 financial year, schools are in their second term. So money that was sent was to complete term 3 2022 and a little bit of term 1 2023. So they're still in arrears in terms of what they're supposed to be receiving from ministry. All right, we go on half term next week, and the question is, what exactly is going to happen? According to Mr. Kai, he says this is one of the issues we raised when we met the Cabinet Secretary, Ezekiel Machogu, last week, and we were told that they were addressing the issue with the National Treasury. He also confirmed that from the next financial year, the ministry will revert to disbursing funds on 50-30-20 basis, so that you receive the bulk of your money first, and then later, a little bit, as then you're now able to complete.
Stories.
Now he's appealing to head teachers. I can come to you and say, please try and understand where I'm coming from. I don't have the money. If I had the money, we would not be having this conversation by now. He says he appealed to head teachers who have not acknowledged receipt of funds sent earlier to do so. Now, the way they're trying to make it seem is, if you just acknowledge the money you received in January, faster than you can say Jack Robinson,
then
squirrel tail fluffy, we'll send you the money.
Why are the head teachers not acknowledging
That's receipts? A very good question. Why not just acknowledge receipt? Because it would seem as though many cannot enter when you've not said that you received the last one. Who knows? Head teachers of primary and junior secondary schools in Western and Nyanza have warned that learning institutions will be crippled if the Ministry of Education fails to address the capitation funding crisis. I mean, what do you expect us to do? How? What do you expect us to do? So, this is the problem on this side. Coming from the ministry has said, just give us a little bit more time. We'll make sure that this is sorted out. But it seems like it is hard. Meanwhile, the National Music Drama, is it? Festivals, thank you, are ongoing. It is interesting to note that there are those who are right now, because we're looking at sub-county performances and then county performances before they become regional performances and then before they become national performances. There will be a number of schools. If this is not sorted out, will they go for extracurricular activities or will they do the basic and necessary? Remember, this is the first year since COVID that the festivals have made an appearance.
It's just
yeah, I know.
Yeah, sometimes it's just you just look at things and you wonder, sasa ni nini inaendelea hapa? What is going on? What is going on? Now that you're still talking about education, yesterday, and you mentioned it, the governor of Nairobi was honored with the presence of the president of the republic at the launch of his campaign program.
Yes.
The school feeding program. Right?
The campaign promise.
The campaign promise of feeding children in public schools and ECDs. Right? And he talked about what they're going to do in the next couple of years in terms of feeding the number of children that they'll be feeding and all. But not everybody is happy. There's a coalition called the Tunza Mtoto Coalition, an education lobby, which is faulting the governor for planning to spend money on a function that is not devolved. Tunza Mtoto Executive Director Muthoni Okoh says the group has already written to the Controller of Budget, Margaret Nyakango, asking her to reject county expenditure on mandates other than those devolved by the Constitution.
Yeah, whatever.
She says the school feeding program dubbed Dish in a county will also entrench inequality as it only targets a section of needy learners in public primary schools while entirely neglecting those in non-formal schools. Okoh, who once headed the county's education dockets under former Governor Mike Sonko, says there are more needy children in non-formal schools in Nairobi than there are in public primary schools. She says, for example, whereas there are only 205 public primary schools in Nairobi, there are over 3,000 non-formal schools with high concentration in informal settlements such as Kibera, Mathare, Mukuru, Kibagare, Kiambio, and Kawangware. Okoh cites an example of Njiro Ward, which has only 2 public primary schools against more than 15 non-formal schools that accommodate all the children who cannot be placed in the 2 schools. She says there are some 10 wards in Nairobi without even a single public primary school, such as Pipeline, Imaradaima, Ngando, Lindi, Laini Saba, Kware, Matopeni, Spring Valley, Sarangombe, and Lakisama. Those ones do not have a single public school in the ward. That means there are very many those non-formal private facilities. I remember when Sakaja was campaigning and the deputy came, his running mate then came, and we asked this question. When you say you're focusing on public primary schools, you're actually going where there is lower need.
Yeah.
Because many of these children in the informal settlements, like we've just talked about here, Kina Lindi, Laini Saba, Kware, Ngando, Spring Valley, Sarangombe, Lakisama, these are kids who are going to a local school and it's a private school. They're paying fees, they don't have food. So if you only concentrate on the public, what's a plan with these over 3,000 non-formal ones?
Look, man, it's fair enough in those assertions, because we're looking at feeding children in public schools, and then you're looking at areas where these schools don't even exist, and it's absolutely necessary that these children go to school. Unfortunately, what it does, bringing out that reality, is that it may then, take away from what the governor did yesterday, which, I mean, it's merit. It has its merit in terms that it was a wonderful thing that was done.
Yep.
I think one of the things he did acknowledge is that we still have a long way to go. And one of the things that he said is that tumekosewa watoto. That's true. It doesn't mean that this one, and he said that many people will say that maybe I should not be taking this money to help these kids. It doesn't stop the fact that schools are needed in other parts of Nairobi, because urban poverty is a thing. It doesn't negate that. This action doesn't negate that. Now, what needs to happen is that there needs to be a wider look at what can we do. Do we need more public schools? That goes without saying, for sure. You need more. We keep asking the question here. You guys mention it all the time. When is the last time you saw this kind of infrastructure being put up in certain areas? Public schools in areas in Nairobi. When is the last time you saw them happening? So it's very important, I think. I just don't think that highlighting one should negate the other in terms of what was done.
And I don't actually think that highlighting this one is negating the other. It's actually asking that question. So as we launch this, because you've taken time to design this program, but I'm not hearing you mention this other. Is it because you are unaware of it? Or is it because you are aware of it, but you are not talking about it now? And then, if that's the case, what's the plan?
Sure.
Because you need to hear, what's the plan? What's the plan of addressing this glaring gap? And especially yesterday, when there was a CS for education present, when the president was present, education is a national government function. That is a question that should have been asked of them. What are we doing to make sure that we have more public primary schools?
What is of interest on page 20 of the Star, there is a former Nairobi Education CEC, Janet Okoh.
That's the one we're talking about.
Yes. Her. But when you hear these conversations, the question that I have to ask is it an honest conversation? Because these are two separate things. Feeding program,
schools existing.
Yes, and building of schools. Because the discussions we've had here in the past, what we've pointed out is the government seems to have ceded this matter of building schools to the private players.
Yes.
People who want to invest in education. Now, every once in a while you come across some civic body or religious body putting up a school, and then the government takes over at some point or the other. But the plan that you speak of, I would like to ask, does the national government have a plan for building more schools anywhere in the country? And if it is, what is it?
What's that plan?
Because they have the facts and figures of the numbers of students that we have and the numbers that are constantly increasing. So what plan do they have to meet this increasing demand for space, learning space within the country?
That's why, and I think that's where the conversation is not really two separate conversations, CG. You see, lack of a public primary school in a certain area means that area does not qualify for Governor Sakaja's Dishina County program, because the Dishina County program is targeting public schools. So it means in these wards, for example, where you're talking about Imaradaima, where an entire ward has no public school, the children in that ward will not enjoy the Dishina County program. See, that's where the issue comes in. Then the second issue that Janet Okoh is raising is, education, primary onwards, basic education, apart from ECD, is a national government function. Now, it means that they should be taking care of everything, from children going to school to children eating. The school feeding program as well is part of the money that goes into the capitation thingy. So when the county now also takes money to supplement what the national government is doing,
there leaves a gap.
What's the plan here?
Yeah, I see it.
Can we take the discussion further? Then there is CDF.
Yep.
And a lot of CDF money has been used to expand or to increase the number of classrooms or labs or whatever it is that they've done with it. But it boils down to the question you're asking, what's the plan? Because even if all these other players come in, should they not fit into a plan that is already in place? And given the population of a place like Imara Daima, surely There is a bit of a problem if we're saying that there's no public school in that place.
Imagine.
Huh?
Imagine. Pipeline, Imara Daima, and all this Lindi.
Is that
an entire ward does not have a public primary school. A neighboring ward does not have a public primary school.
Isn't there a bit of a problem
That's
there?
a big one.
Because
and those wards we're talking about are the informal settlements. The population density
is immense.
Yes.
Then this discussion of planning then comes into play. Because when you allow these habitations to actually be erected, what about the amenities that should follow them? Because when you put up buildings, it means there are people living there.
Yes.
There should be amenities that accompany this large population.
Indeed.
So where's the plan? Because if you're saying there are no schools, are there public hospitals? I have to ask that question.
Of course not. I'm telling you, being poor in this country, we'll talk about the stories of the poverty. It's an issue. Because these people have to cough a shilling for everything.
The little shilling they have has to be split into very many things.
Yes. Yeah. Haya. Tuambie.
The port of Mombasa beats May target by 31,873 containers.
Mm-hmm.
I thought a little story just to brighten the day. There is a growth of 26.8 against the May 22 performance, the data shows. What we're saying is that the port of Mombasa, the activities therein, have increased by this percentage.
Mm-hmm.
What it means is that, contrary to the story that we'd heard that the Mombasa port was losing in popularity and losing out to Dar may be getting business, or there may be a lot more business coming through than there was business before, for whatever reason. But the business activities in Mombasa have increased significantly from last year. Now, we know that every year when we have an election, business slows down in this country. This could be the factor, but that notwithstanding, it means the port is busier. Now, if the port is busier, it means the SGR will be busier. If the SGR is busier, every other business that is associated with the port will be busier. Okay? So it means there is a robust increase in the economic activities at the coast. But the never-ending question, how does the county of Mombasa benefit from all these activities?
From its natural resource.
It's a natural resource. It's nestled within the county. How does the county of Mombasa benefit from all these delightfully sounding activities?
That conversation muta have, mutashinda hapo.
Pale tu, hatutasonga.
Sawa bana.
Okay.
You guys, just reminded me that you're talking about that. There used to be mayor in Mombasa. What was his name?
Remind me his name.
I'm trying to remember his name.
What did
he passed away. He passed away.
Did he become an MP at some point?
I think so.
Mohima?
It's not Masood Mohima. It's not Masood. Masood Mohima went on to become a member of Parliament for Likoni.
Yes, he did.
Was it him? I think it was him.
But tell us the story anyway.
Well, he was advocating the same issue. This port is here. How much are we getting? Then the then County Council of Mombasa should have been receiving something, right?
Yes.
And his argument was, for every ton that you process at the port of Mombasa, the county council should receive $1. Okay? So it's $1 per ton. Right?
Sounds like a reasonable amount.
$1 per every ton you process, $1 per ton. Sasa yeye bwana meya akaenda pale akasema, sasa sisi hapa tutaka 1 ton per dollar.
Okay, Eric.
1 ton per dollar sasa.
A country of poor people. It's the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics new report. And the numbers don't look good. 5 in every 13 Kenyans lived in poverty in 2021, representing 38.6% of Kenya's population of 49,529,000 that year, and an increase of 20% from 2019. Let's look at some of those numbers. Rural poverty now is at 13,700,000. What they're calling hardcore poverty in those rural areas is 2,641,000. Urban poverty stands at 5,400,000. Hardcore is 238,000. Now, when we look at the country as a whole, 19,100,000 are said to be poor. Hardcore of that is 2,879,000. The story is carried on page 4 and 5 of The Nation, and just looking into some more of that in terms of what exactly it means. Remember yesterday we had a conversation about tough times. What does tough times mean for certain people? Many Kenyans sink into poverty in this latest report by the Data Bureau. Individuals or households, if estimated at the household level, whose total consumption per adult equivalent was less than 2,331 shillings per month in rural areas and less than 2,905 per month in urban areas. These are considered to be hardcore poor or living in hardcore poverty. You get it? So you're asking, so what does hardcore mean? If you're living at about 2,300 in the rural area per month, it's hardcore poverty. If you're living at 2,900 shillings in the urban areas per month, that is hardcore poverty. The report shows that rural Kenya continues to experience high levels of poverty, with 1 in 13 rural dwellers living in extreme poverty, while only 1 in 66 urban dwellers living in hardcore poverty in 2021. In terms of food poverty, the report shows that 1 in 3 rural dwellers could not meet their food needs. And it sounds very professional, but what does that mean? They went hungry. All right?
Yep.
For sustained periods of time.
Yep.
While in urban areas, 1 in 4 also lived in food poverty. You look at Nairobi, it's a cement city, and you think, well, everybody's getting along. No. Even in urban centers, you have people who cannot meet their food needs. This is what we call urban poverty. One is considered to be living in food poverty if an individual or household whose food consumption per adult equivalent was less than 2,300 per month in rural and 2,900 in urban. Your food, and we're not talking about other things like water, paying money, food that you consume only. All right? KNBS released 3 reports on food poverty this month alone, capturing trends in Kenya's poverty status from 2019 to 2021. The reports captured data on overall poverty, food poverty, and hardcore poverty, with 16,945 households surveyed in 2021. Now, listen to this. A person is considered to be in overall poverty if their consumption of items such as food and basic non-food expenses, such as shelter, clothing, and personal care, falls under 3,947, and there is a significant number of Kenyans who are living in this state. And that is for rural dwellers. And for urban dwellers, all your needs put together, shelter, food, clothing, and other expenses, under 7,903 shillings in urban areas, you're poor. All right?
So now we've moved to 7,900. Okay, no.
Overall.
It's overall. It's food plus.
Just for food. So now it's food plus shelter and all your other expenses. If you are trying to get by under this number in urban Kenya, that is poor.
You know, that is assuming that housing is about, what, 2,000 bob?
Yeah, around there. Remember, the number has already been given for food at 2,900 shillings.
Okay. So food is 2,900.
Yeah. So out of 7,900, 2,900 is gone.
So 5K for shelter, clothing, school,
transport, school, medical,
blah, blah, blah. So let's give housing 2,000 bob as well.
So now you're at you're now 3,000 left.
These are economists. They're just looking at reality.
Yeah.
But the reality is, anything that costs you 2,000 shillings as rent is not what would be called a house.
Never.
Far from it.
Never.
It is. So already, even if you went to 10,000 bob, move everything and you say, 10,000 bob, it's still poor.
Yes, it is.
Because for you, what is the lowest rent for a proper, what is defined by government, by UN Habitat as a house? A house has a roof, it's the quality of the roof, wall, the quality of the floor, and the amenities that come with it.
Yes.
Do you have access to sanitation services? Do you have access to water? Do you have access, all those
Do
things?
you have access to a road? I saw that in the report that
All
there
those
should be access
things.
to a road.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you don't have any of those things, then that is not a house. Now, for you to get that, the minimum you'll pay for rent is, say, 10 Gs.
It is. That's exactly the number.
For the house.
It was actually put at 11,200
There
average.
you go. So 11,200 is just house alone.
Yes.
So if you're doing anything at less than 10K, at including all those things, you're poor.
Yeah.
If you're even doing anything at 11,200, that is house plus food plus education plus anything, you're poor.
Yes.
That's the reality that we're talking about.
And what are we saying? Look at those numbers again. What are we saying? That out of the 49 million people in Kenya, this poverty that we're speaking of, we're not even talking about hardcore poverty. The poverty that you have defined right now, 1/3 of Kenya's population is living in that state. It doesn't matter whether you're in rural Kenya or in urban Kenya. That's the state.
It is. It's crazy. So there's a story that could go with that in the Business Daily. Two stories actually. One is on page 4 and the other one is on page 19. Let me start with the one on page 4. Male-headed polygamous marriages in urban areas are likely to be poorer than their rural peers, pointing to the high cost of maintaining more than one wife in major cities and towns. Okay, ignore the bit of maintaining more than one wife.
Okay, all right.
Just go with
What do we replace it with?
just go
put
with
it away
having.
for now.
Leave it completely.
Yeah.
Having more than one. A new report by the National Statistician has shown that 54.9% of urban polygamous families are poor. 54% of urban polygamous families. These findings point to the high cost of maintaining a polygamous union, which until 2014 had been a cultural practice. Urban male-headed households in polygamous marriages have the highest propensity of poverty. That is one angle. Sawa. There is multifaceted angles. The other one, love poverty. Inflation is raising the cost of dating. Young men are increasingly finding themselves priced out of the market as their spending power dwindles.
Oh, yeah.
So, they give a story here of someone, a 35-year-old guy called Mark Kariuki. He's 35-year-old, he's a banker, and he's been consciously trying to live singlehood, but has been set aback by the vast sums that he needs to spend on dates and activities required to know someone that he'd like to spend the rest of his life with. He gives an example. For example, with the kind of job that I do and the kind of ladies that I'm attracting, okay? Serving for two in a chic restaurant in Nairobi starts from 3,000 bob upwards. In some hangout joints, the amount could easily hit over 10,000, which is a painful pinch for someone with a litany of bills and family members to take care of.
This is in Nairobi.
This is in Nairobi.
And there are places where you cannot go to where the food costs less.
Well, the lady that's a point of being priced out.
Yeah.
Okay.
He has priced himself out.
The lady that your bank, the people that you're meeting from your social circles, where do you meet people? You meet them in the social places. First of all, you meet them at work.
Then you go to the cultural establishment.
Then the cultural establishments. So the places that he goes to, the ladies that he meets, those that they would have a conversation with and maintain a conversation. They want to be taken to a place where they'll
they don't want to be taken to some
food.
back-end shack.
So the guy is looking 6 Gs just a date. Alafu sijui kuna
and at the end of the day, you will not marry her. Pussy can't. Not possible.
So this cost of living has effects everywhere.
He should change where he socializes.
And
if
then
the people he meets in the places he currently socializes cost that much, the other place you can socialize.
But he doesn't want the one who are in those other places.
Then he should stop complaining.
Yeah.
Basically, he's been priced out.
No, he hasn't. He has priced himself out. He has choices.
What? He has choices?
Yes, he does.
Okay. So he comes back home and talks about, this new report that has come from Nini. Report? Hata mtoto akona report form.
But it's not funny. People are stressed.
It's 7 a.m. Good morning.
Spice up your life.
morning, this is News. I'm Dennis Aseto. The members of Parliament voted to approve the proposed amendment in 24 items in the Finance Bill 2023 as recommended by the Budget Committee. In the Committee of the Whole House, the MPs okayed recommendations of the Finance Committee while voting on each item.
Honourable Speaker, I beg to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Finance Bill, National Assembly Bill number 14 of 2023 up to clause 24 and approved the same with amendments and seek leave to sit again tomorrow.
Today.
And seek leave to sit again later today, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, I propose the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. I confirm that we have the requisite quorum. I'll now put the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? No. The ayes have it.
The members of Parliament approved many of the amendments presented by the chairperson of the Budget Committee, Kimani Kuria. The controversial affordable housing levy was amended to 1.5 deduction from 3% by both the employer and employee. The proposals by Seme MP James Nyukal to have the 5% deductions on online content creators be scrapped off was denied, meaning that artists and content creators will now be charged 5% from the payments they get.
These are strugglers. These are the hustlers. Imagine. These are the real hustlers, not the ones you are pretending to be hustlers.
For starters, what is proposed in the bill is withholding tax of 15%. So we have made them at par at 5%.
Just like any other profession. In fact, their biggest argument was that it should be reduced from the 15% that had been initially proposed.
Imposing on them the 15% down to 5%, I still feel we are not being very fair to this category of digital monetizers.
It should be noted that the Finance Bill has a total of 88 items and various taxes proposed to finance the budget. Parliament is expected to return to session today to continue voting on the remaining 68 items. We continue to follow up on this developing story. Be sure the Newswire and the entire Standard Media Group will be bringing you the very latest when it comes to the Finance Bill 2023. Now, Azimio Party leader Raila Odinga is now demanding an explanation from the Kenya KEMSA government over the alleged borrowing of 213.4 billion shillings just a week before the beginning of the new financial year. Odinga questioned the President William Ruto-led administration over what it termed as suspicious borrowing, saying that the state should come clean regarding the new debt. And health Susan Nakuru has maintained that she'll do everything humanly possible to restore sanity in the health sector. Appearing before the Parliamentary Health Committee, the CS revealed how small hospitals conspired to defraud the National Health Insurance Fund. Nakuru further called on the committee to support her move to get rid of the mess and clean up the rot in NHIF.
Chair and honorable members, it will shock you that of the payments we made this month after having delays from Exchequer for a long time, the top facility to be paid is one that we have suspended. And in all honesty, and I am yet to be convinced, that you will have a small private facilities doing more surgeries than Kenyatta, than Moi, than KU, all these public facilities combined. We have some small health, and it is not the Aga Khans, the Nairobis, and the big currents that you hear about. There is a problem. And we can only solve this problem together with you members. I'm seeking your support, that you be with me on this one. Unfortunately, there are going to be casualties, but please be with me.
This comes as one of the hospitals facing probe into the medical fund. JKM Hospital in Meru County has been closed. Now, stakeholders in the media industry have called on President William Ruto to assure Kenyans that his administration won't silence journalists who expose mistakes in his administration. Led by Kenya Editors Guild, our very own President Zubaida Kome noted that the continued attack on the media by the Kenya KEMSA government is worrying.
Kenya Media Sector Working Group stands in solidarity with Nation Media Group and all journalists in the country against attacks and threats from the government and government officials. We also call on President William Ruto to issue and firm assurance that they will not be allowed to seek shelter by trying to silence the media that exposes their misdeeds. We are also calling on the international community to intervene and protect media freedom.
I'm Dennis Aseta. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
It's now heavy on Kiambu Road. It's coming out towards Muthaiga Square. We're looking at traffic also really heavy on the Thika Superhighway. Coming into the CBD well beyond Githurai today. It's going to have some, it'll open up a bit as you get past Garden City. And then as you get to the Outer Ring Road Junction, that is going to pack up again. Kangundo Road, been busy all morning. It's also busy on Manyanja Road. And we're seeing some traffic on Juja Road as well as Jogo Road. James Gishoro, busy as well. We're looking at Naivasha Road, Gitanga Road, coming out into all of these areas. Wednesday morning traffic has started to pick up a few minutes after 7 o'clock. We'll keep an eye on things and see how it opens up closer to half the hour. Spice FM KE on Twitter. Keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation.
How are you doing? Welcome to the second hour of the Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, live on Spice FM, now live on KTN Home, also live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. Spice FM KE, that's the Facebook page, and also Spice FM is our YouTube channel. Please look for it. And if you miss any part of a conversation at any point, you can catch up with the recordings of the live streams later on YouTube as well as Facebook. 911. Wycliffe Jean sang that song. Sing it.
Someone please call 911.
Hey.
Go on.
Hapo.
I don't know the rest of those. I will sing my own things and maybe that's...
Go on. So 911, there's a security company called the 911 Group in Kenya. It's been in the country, in operation in the country for over 25 years. When it comes to those matters of security and others, they are very well versed in this. Very good with installing car alarms, car tracking, also very good with providing you with armed guards, also very good with providing you vehicle rescue services. Now, they tell you if for any one particular reason or moment you are somewhere and you need some emergency rescue services, they can actually sort you out. All they ask you to do is go to Google Play Store or Apple App Store and download the 911 Group app. Once you have it, you'll just do a simple registration and you'll give them your details. Plus, also, you'll give them like somebody's number. Okay, you can give them somebody else's email. Then this is my emergency contact person. So in the event you're an emergency somewhere, you just get your phone out, you go to the app, you get in touch with them and you tell them, I need support. They will see your exact location wherever you are using GPS tracking, and they'll be able to dispatch people to come and help you. Sio ni kitu kubwa?
Kabisa.
It's a very important thing. Very, very important. Okay. Big story that was happening in Parliament yesterday, Ndu.
Yes,
what was this in terms of KEMSA?
All right, so the acting CEO of KEMSA was brought before the National Assembly's Health Committee yesterday in the name of Dr. Andrew Mulwa. He's acting in that capacity, but then from the conversation which he had, which from all indications, he was being extremely open about in terms of what happened. I'm just going to give you a rundown of that story and say what happened, all right? He admitted that he changed the specifications for the botched 3.7 billion shilling mosquito net tender. So he appeared before the Senate Health Committee yesterday. He told MPs that at the time the specifications were changed, He was a director responsible for malaria at the Ministry of Health. So it's not like it was brought a fish out of water. He was within the system already, which we know. He said after the advertisement for the tender went out, the head of the Division of National Malaria Program, whose name he did not give during this session, raised concern that the advert did not have the correct specifications. Now, in the advert, he then said that he told him to do a memo to himself on the same. He did a memo, and somehow the memo did not get to his office, but was acted upon by the Principal Secretary, Dr. Josephine Mboro, at the time.
Okay, so head of malaria does memo. Head of malaria comes to Dr. Mulwa at an event, tells him, hey, by the way, you know,
I've seen something's wrong with
the
this
malaria,
Yeah.
there's an issue. Oh, you think there's an issue? Okay, what's the issue? This and the other. Why don't you do a memo? Just put it in writing so that then action can be taken. So he does the memo.
Somehow does not get back to him.
So memo goes to PS's office.
Direct.
Okay.
Now, let me give you the details of what was here. And that's how the tender was changed, essentially.
Okay.
What they're calling the PBO was not part of the original tender, which led the Global Fund to reject the deal. And what we know is that according to the agreements, pre-agreed conditions was that it had to be complete. Now, when the Global Fund saw this, this is why they said it did not meet the mark and there was something wrong with the tender, and all these other stories started coming out as a result of that. In the initial tender advertised by KEMSA on the 31st of January this year as an international open tender with a bid deadline of February 23rd, it was later extended to March 10th. There were no specifications. The extension, according to the Health Cabinet Secretary Susan Nakhumicha, who also appeared before the committee, came upon receipt of communication from Dr. Mboro directly. Then State Department of Public Health and Professional Standards Principal Secretary. Dr. Mboro is said to have instructed that the PBO be included and the timeline extended to March 2023, which according to them did not meet the pre-agreed standards from Kenya and the Global Fund. Upon receipt of the communication, the then CEO, Terry Ramadhani, sought advice on the new specifications. KEMSA wrote to the Global Fund to seek their concurrence. The organization later communicated asking KEMSA not to modify the tender specification and only, procure standard net as had been advertised earlier. The tender closed where there were no changes to the tender documents. Okay? Now, since they were close to the end of the tender, since they were about to close the tender essentially, members of the tender committee were appointed by the PS, Dr. Mboro, on the 8th of March. Remember now, the time has been extended to when? The 23rd. This was the opening and evaluation of the tender. From the committee proceedings, it emerged that Dr. Mboro...
Of the tender are appointed by Dr. Mboro?
Yes.
Okay.
So now, during these committee proceedings yesterday, it emerged that Dr. Mboro acted upon receipt of communication from the head of malaria division and was instructed by Dr. Mulwa to do a memo to be acted upon. Now, when he was asked if he was saying that the advice from the PS to request for the amendment of the tender came from his office, he said that yes, essentially it did. Because if you had seen that there was a discrepancy with this tender, all I said is do a memo so that in the future it will show that there was something to show that there was a mistake and that we tried to do what we could do to rectify it.
This anomaly.
Exactly. Which is what he explained yesterday. He said, yes, I asked him to do a memo if he was convinced that there was something missing. The memo was sent to the PS, who acted upon it at the program level. We did not have a contract between KEMSA and the Global Fund and the National Treasury, so we did not know what specification they had agreed upon. He said while giving the specifications, they had given 3 options, blue, green, or white. And in terms of insecticides, they had suggested that either PBO or pyrethrins, with the Global Fund settling on pyrethrins. This is the insecticide used on the nets before they're now packaged. At the time, the head of the program...
Can I just pause it slightly?
Yes.
This is the insecticide used on...
the nets.
There was an issue with the insecticides because there was a discussion about the effectiveness of the insecticide. So are we saying this was the most effective insecticide, or is saying this is the one they used?
So
this is the one
that was suggested.
That Global Fund had said we use this one.
Okay.
However, even in the story in the Standard today, the issue of PBO is an issue that had been discussed before, and what is this PBO in full?
I'll get it in a minute.
Nobody talks about what this PBO is in full in any of those stories.
They're just telling us PBO.
They're just saying PBO.
Well, we're supposed to figure out what it means, isn't
yes.
It's still the same.
Procurement of the mosquito nets, according to Dr. Mulo, was done by the malaria program under the Ministry of Health as part of the policy which highlighted specifications as per a document from 2016. The document from 2016 has one of the specifications being PBO. Specifications by KEMSA was rectangular in shape with white, green and blue in color. Global Fund settled on polyethylene nets as part of the specification. According to Mulo, apart from beyond Global Fund, there are other partners who support the malaria program in Kenya, and inclusion of PBO could allow them to easily procure the nets. So basically, he's saying, so we have a Global Fund funded program, but we also have other donors who also come and fund malaria programs in the country. Head of malaria program is looking at, so we are procuring nets. If we include PBO, it allows KEMSA to procure nets for all these other programs as well. Okay? This is what we've been doing since 2016. We have PBO. Head of malaria program writes a memo saying, we've been doing this as part of our policy in our programming, we have PBO. The PS writes to the CEO of KEMSA. CEO of KEMSA says, all right, I have written to seek concurrence with the Global Fund bosses. Global Fund bosses say, no.
We want pyrethrin.
Stick with this pyrethrin thing. So time is running out. They go back to... So this whole confusion is a back and forth.
Right. So the thing is, when the tender documents came, because of this specification that you're talking about, they realized that it did not include this
PBO.
Mysterious PBO. That is when head of malaria went to Dr. Mulo and said, wait, there's no PBO in this thing. This does not allow us to cast our nets, no pun intended, wide, right?
Yep.
So he wrote and it went directly to the PS. PS signed off on it and said, let's go ahead with this because the tender period is closing. Only for that to have happened, the Global Fund now came and said, hold on a minute, you've included PBO. That is not according to the standards that we agreed upon.
Do not go with PBO.
Do not go with PBO. Stick with pyrethrins, which is what they had said. Which is why they now said, we are pulling out.
Can I just chime in? I've been doing a little search here and there.
Yes.
Yeah, this pyrethroid or PY is what is used. But PBO, otherwise known as piperonyl butoxide, PBO, it's used to enhance the potency.
Oh.
Yes.
So it doesn't, they can work together?
Yes. It's supposed to enhance the potency.
Okay.
Yes. When you, the components of these two when combined makes the nets far more effective for the purpose that they intended.
And for a longer period?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And this is something that the World Health Organization had said can work. Meaning, this discussion goes beyond what we're dealing with here.
Yeah.
It's a medical discussion that is even at the level of
WHO.
Yep, it is.
And it is something that has happened at the ministry and KEMSA for years before this particular tender of 2023.
Yes, and there are there's documentation and there is writing, there's publication of how these things were even used in a neighboring country called Tanzania. Okay?
So,
and this was tested over a 20-month period. So this is not something that is new. So this debate that we've been sucked into is a question of, because if you add some other ingredient, the likelihood is that the cost will also go up.
Of course.
Okay, so we then raises the question, what really are we dealing with here? Because no one has said that if you add the PBO, something will go
wrong.
It affects.
Yes, adversely. It doesn't say that.
No, I think that's exactly what we're looking at here. We're looking at a cost issue, that then the amount then per net would then rise, and it would be significant enough for somebody to sit up and take notice.
It would offer better protection.
But it's also more effective.
Exactly, it's more effective. So the question is...
For a longer period.
So the question is, why the insistence for this PBO then not to be included? Why? Because that's what we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
Because there was the inclusion of PBO, that is why then the tender or the whole agreement was pulled.
I think it also goes beyond this, because you see the agreement between Global Fund was done at ministerial level. It's Global Fund plus National Treasury plus the Ministry of Health at that high level. Did they look and agree at specifications that also suit our policy? Because when that agreement is written, and these are the specifications, so we are going to support you in a malaria program, and this is what we are going to do. Did the Ministry of Health actually look back and say, so no, this one, our policy is that this is what we use, so you come in and fit into our policy? Or are we adjusting to fit into your policy because you're donating?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, it makes sense when you think about it, but unfortunately we're doing this in retrospect. It would have been great to be a fly on the wall in that conversation and then see what exactly happened, because one would often say that if we're having a conversation about assistance for a product that is going to help Kenya as a country, then surely there should be some inclusion in terms of what you know to be. The head of malaria is a doctor worth his salt.
Yeah, by the time you're becoming head of malaria,
he knows what he's doing. By the time he is saying, look here, we have a tender coming in for nets, right? And we know that this PBO will enhance the efficacy of these nets. We know that. We've practiced this thing. So I've noticed this is missing. Why can we not include it? But then beyond that, why was this not had? Because these standard requirements are an agreement between these two bodies, the Ministry of Health and the Global Fund. So when you were having this conversation, and the people who are on the ground, the end user literally of this thing, who would actually then take it to market, as it were, comes to find out later that this thing that would enhance the efficacy is not included, he's going to ask a question. So we want to make it seem, and we may not have all the details, but we want to make it seem as though somebody had some underhanded deal here. But from what I'm understanding here, and Mulo is being very open, he's saying, yeah, because we felt that it was important to put in. But now what you're saying is that it did not meet the standards of the agreement that you had originally had.
It goes into, those questions that you ask yourself. So, number one, like City keeps asking, what exactly are we dealing with here? In this entire Global Fund scandal, what is the issue?
Who's upset?
Because there was a quick decision that was made that, no, in fact, we're not going to use you people again, you KEMSA. We're going to use another company, and we bring in another company, and we say that's the one that's going to procure the nets and supply the nets. All right, why? Because there was the issue of we want to change the specifications at this particular stage. Is it because there was one supplier that you felt was qualified, like you've heard before?
Did you
felt
have
that this supplier was qualified, but this supplier was locked out despite being qualified? What is, because you hear all these stories and everything just points to the public officers. And I think maybe we should also ask questions of the Global Fund and its management.
You cannot ask...
What exactly is going on at Global Fund as well?
For two people in an agreement, you cannot only ask questions about one side. You cannot, especially when something like this has gone on. Because behind this, you see the smoke screen? Behind it is people who are actually doing their job. The head of malaria, for example, in the country, and I'm sure you can attest to that, is not some run-of-the-mill guy.
No.
These people know what they're doing.
No, you cannot be head of malaria if you do not, know what you're doing.
Yeah?
And you've been around the block a couple of times.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you can't ask questions of on one side and then not ask on the other side because there's 3.7 billion shillings behind it. You can't. The question is also going to be asked, was there somebody that you preferred to get this tender beyond the person who actually did? And because of that, that is why you're pulling this? We have to be bold enough to ask the question.
Actually, the question has to be asked now and an answer sought, because whatever the Ministry of Health and KEMSA are being accused of, that same accusation could be leveled at Global Health.
Absolutely.
The exact same thing, because what makes us think that people who work within Global Health are incapable of pulling the stunts that are being alleged are being pulled by the Ministry of Health and KEMSA. What is it? You assume other people do not have preferred suppliers, or they don't have people whom they feel they should,
or their own people.
All these discussions that are taking place. There's documented publication that shows that when you add PBO to these protective nets, there is improved protection. There is evidence. It's not a debate. It's something that is factual.
I'll tell you something else that invited my angst just a little bit. Nyeri Town MP Duncan Mathenge said to Dr. Mulwa during the hearings yesterday, or rather the session yesterday, that he was responsible for the botched deal. It was your advice that made the Global Fund withdraw from the tender award. You are the one who advised that the memo be written. You are the one who made the government lose the contract. And today, Dr. Mulwa, you are the CEO of the organization that is responsible for the storage and distribution of nets.
Actually, that MP is holding this particular stick from the wrong end. Because when somebody writes a memo, that's someone who's leaving a paper trail. Why do you leave a paper trail?
For it to come and stick you in the back later?
Exactly.
Why?
You know, this is a seasoned medical practitioner. This is not somebody who graduated from the university recently. Memo is to document what it is that you've been told, so that it's in the public domain. You can say, this is why we did this. There was an issue and this is what we felt we ought to do. Okay? But the assumption that Global Fund pulled this away from Kenya because there was of necessity a problem within KEMSA and the ministry, that's one side of the story. What if indeed there is a problem with the Global Fund or within Global Fund? What if there is a problem there?
Yeah, and maybe we're looking at the wrong side of whatever the scandal is said it's supposed to be.
Yes.
Honestly, because what really here is the problem? The fella noticed that there was an issue and said, let's raise this. And then you document it to say that we are actually raising it. So somebody was not happy.
You know, if you're going to accuse someone, it goes beyond you saying this person is at fault. Just like he produced a memo, please produce the evidence that when laid at the feet of this person, it will be irrefutable evidence that this person indeed is at fault, as you say. But merely assuming that fault is ascertained by words when somebody is accused and someone else says they are at fault, that indeed by so uttering those words, this person is at fault, that's a fallacy.
You know, it's a good thing that Parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate, are taking up this matter. You know, it's an issue. It's come to the public domain. So the public's watchdog, in the name of Parliament, comes and says, let's take up this matter. Let's summon the individual. Let them come and answer questions. That's all very, very good. The problem that we see with these parliamentary inquiries is that they actually deal so much with sideshows and drama and not
the actual
issue. We saw it with the COVID billionaires. They summoned people. It was all drama.
Man.
And you're the one. Who are you? You come here and tell us.
Worthy of an award.
Can you go away? You're not the owner of this company. Can you go and bring the owner of the company? Oh, how did you get? You know,
I was walking by.
All those things. Huh? And in the end, the report that comes out actually does not have the substance.
Was that even a report?
It's all drama. The managed equipment scheme, also investigation by the Senate, same. All drama. We don't see them going far. This one, as you can see, is heading in that same direction. When MPs are spending time saying, so you're the one who made this, you're the one who made us lose the deal. You're the one, you're the one. This is Kenya. And the people who are being quoted here as having spoken are people who, semi-member of Parliament, Dr. James Nyikal. This man has been PS, has been Director of Medical Services, has worked in the ministry for long. He demanded an explanation on what caused Mulwa to change the specifications. We live in a country where people doing their jobs are affected by interests. Nobody wants to cry and die for this country.
You know, James Nyikal,
he is the one that I'd expect to actually be guiding that committee and showing them.
Because he knows how it works.
This is how we actually frame our questions.
He does.
So we get to the root of this matter.
Yes.
So we identify this is what the issue would be. Now, when he joins the bandwagon and says, oh, so you're the one who affected these specifications, there are people who are just occupied by interest. You know, you've not given substance to this statement.
No.
But you know what?
Yes.
That thing that you said, this lack of desire to get to the root of the matter.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Getting to the root of the matter will expose other things that very many folks will be uncomfortable with. And so we want to keep it here at surface level, just bubbling here on top. We want to be able to throw in a Dr. Mulwa here or throw in somebody else at KEMSA, give them the weight of the responsibility. When you know that if you took your fork and you dug a little bit deeper under the surface, you will get to the root of the matter and there will be some people who are uncomfortable. And you don't have the girth to be able to come out and say, actually, this is the real problem, but you're making everybody look over here when the thing is slithering under the fence, going in the other direction.
You know, when you hear such things going on, because the gun seemed to be focused on Dr. Mulwa.
For now.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow it will be somebody else.
Yeah.
Actually,
It was Dr. Mburu.
Yes.
It went to Ramadhani.
Yes, it passed by Tum.
Passed by Tum.
Yes. Touched the CS Kidogo, just whisked by. Now,
it's on Mulwa
it's trained
today.
on Mulwa.
Next.
Yes. But the question I want to ask is, again, as you say, if we're dealing with the drama that we often see in these august houses, what are we being diverted from?
That's what I'm saying. The thing is slithering under the fence, and you guys are all looking here at the shiny thing.
Plus, it is being assumed that Mulwa is the wrong person to be acting CEO of KEMSA. So who do they want to be acting CEO of KEMSA, if indeed they do not want Mulwa?
I think differently. I think all this drama is because these parliamentary investigations are a cash cow for individual members. We've heard this being said before.
So it's a shakedown.
It's a shakedown. We've heard this being said before, right? So a scandal has happened. It falls within our committee.
Very much.
Come,
We are starting. We are going to investigate this one. Summon everybody. All right? And then the people who are feeling, hey, this heat is too much, they are approached and told, uko na ngapi? So we divert attention. This has been said many times before. We are not saying it for the first time here. It has been said many times before, even by members of parliament.
Themselves.
By previous former members of parliament. They have said it. Is it likely that these are the same things that we're seeing? This health committee here, the health committee in the Senate, the energy committee here, energy committee in the Senate, transport committee here, transport committee in the Senate, education committee,
budget appropriation committee.
It's all conducting a probe, but nothing. Let's take a break. 28 minutes to 8. Kenya's biggest conversation. Live on Spice FM, on KTN Home, and on Facebook and YouTube. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This is one of the hottest show that we can ever miss in the morning, and it's a show that really gives a real situation in the Situation Room.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you guys so much. Ndutha, nice meeting you. Even beautiful in person more than in photos.
Say that again.
Character is like pregnancy. You cannot hide it. You know, people hiding here and there, you know, but after 2-3 months, 5 months, now you will see. So that is why the attitude that you were showing us, you're pregnant.
It's like what my grandmother would say. You cannot pickpocket a naked man.
How's that? It's communal, isn't it?
No comment.
15 and cloudy in Nairobi, highs of 22, and we'll see highs of 25 in a mostly cloudy Nakuru at 16. 15 and cloudy in Nyeri, highs of 21, and 23 will be the high in Eldoret, where it's cloudy at 14. It's clear at 23 in Mombasa, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 30 in a mostly cloudy Malindi. The rain showers continue in Kisumu, highs of 29 and lows of 19, and at 17 it's cloudy in Kakamega, going to highs of 27 today. Partly cloudy in Kampala, highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 30 in a clear Dar es Salaam at 23. It's 5 degrees and clear in Johannesburg, highs of 18, and we'll see highs of 29 in a mostly cloudy Lagos at 26, and at 20 it's cloudy in Kinshasa, highs of 31 and lows of 20.
Spice up your life.
All right, it's inching closer to official traffic hour. Still heavy coming out of the Thika Superhighway as well as Kiambu Road. That's the heaviest that you'll see of roads this morning, and a little bit on James Gishuru as well. Anywhere there's a drift, there seems to be some traffic. Folks going up and down, trying to get where they are going into the CBD. It's been busy on those triple roads of Kangunda Road, Juja Road, and Manyanja Road. Everybody connecting on Outer Ring and then trying to find their way slowly into the city. Let's keep an eye on things and see what happens as we go along. Tell us if you might be stuck anywhere. We'll spread the word for folks to avoid, or if you find a good route, let us know and folks can use that. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Are you ready? Okay. Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
4 minutes to 8. Conversations continued. The Communications Authority of Kenya CEO Ezra Chiloba has told the Senate committee investigating the Shakahola deaths that there is no licensing category for religious broadcasting stations because they are all licensed either as commercial or community broadcasters. He was appearing before that committee chaired by Tana River Senator Danson Mungatana, where Chiloba said they have so far issued 632 broadcast licenses. 109 broadcasters are airing programs exclusively categorized as religious, and they are expected to comply with the set guidelines. He says the law does not give the CA authority to deal with digital content after senators sought to know why content related to Pastor Paul Mackenzie has not been pulled down. He said this was due to most social media platforms being owned by companies based outside the country. What we're doing is putting up content together so that we can build up a case with international social media companies so that they can pull down the content related with Pastor Mackenzie and any other misleading religious contents. Senator Richard Onyonka of Kisii said it was sad that CA cannot deal with harmful content on the spot since besides Pastor Mackenzie, there are many other churches engaging in activities that end up misleading Kenyans. Baringo's William Cheptumo expressed concern that the admission by CA that it cannot pull down harmful content from various platforms on the spot means the country is not in charge of its digital space. So basically what Chiloba was saying, I issue licenses for broadcasters in Kenya. People who put on content on social media platforms, I don't issue licenses to the social media platforms. So what we can do is we communicate with them and say, there is content here that is harmful. Please block that kind of content, pull down that kind of content. But if the content is being shared by other people, it becomes a whole jungle out there. So we have Pastor Mackenzie's content on various platforms, and the Communication Authority of Kenya is just looking at it.
What else could they do?
That's what he's saying. The only thing we can do is we compile the offending content, then communicate with the platforms, Meta and Alphabet, and tell them, look, this content, for one reason or another.
Yeah.
But are we saying that if there was content on social media today that was completely radicalizing and calling for the death of many people, directly saying we are going to kill people, that the Communication Authority would sit back and compile content and then reach out to Google and tell them, please look at this, please see what you can do about this? Would you?
No way, Jose. They'd pull it down immediately and then deal with the repercussions later. Because you see the threat that it holds towards the public. Yes. You see the potential of damage. And so you're going to say, as the watchdog for communications at whatever level, be they for education or entertainment, they would not allow that. We know it already.
They would have reached out to those platforms by now. They'd have reached out to Facebook, to YouTube, and told them, this is it.
Yes.
If there was content today that was directly spreading hate, You can't tell me that the Communication Authority would be sitting back and compiling and seeing, and then so many months down the road, they're saying what we are doing is putting up content together so that we can build up a case with the international social media companies so that they can pull out the content.
No. So one of two things possible here, that there's this whole merry-go-round going around in that, or he was not prepared to answer that question, because it seems very obvious that if there's something that poses potential risk and or danger to anybody who's consuming it on TV, that they, as the watchdog, will pull it down. We've seen it before. We've seen quick action being taken. So perhaps he was not ready to say, okay, well, this is what we are going to do, or this is what we would do in this situation. But to then go around and say we need to go through this 1, 2, 3 process when you know for sure that the radicalization of people continues to happen, then I don't know why you would give that kind of answer.
9 years ago, in a town called Mpeketoni in Lamu, 90 people were killed. Many others were displaced. And Al-Shabaab terrorists took responsibility for that attack. That was 9 years ago. In the recent past, we're just talking about this last weekend, 2 Kenya Defence Force officers were killed when they were responding to an attack on the GSU unit in Lamu. 20 officers were injured, and of the 20, 12 were GSU officers, while the rest were KDF soldiers. In the last 2 weeks, 22 officers died in Garissa and Lamu counties. Last Thursday, one suspected Al-Shabaab terrorist was arrested along Garissa-Dadaab Road by a multi-agency team. Now, there seems to be a resurgence of terrorist attacks, not just in Kenya. We saw what happened in Uganda. Now, the Ministry of Defense, in response to all these things and the aforegoing, has stated that it wants to modernize artillery to fight Al-Shabaab. And they say that the equipment will include sophisticated armored personnel carriers. This is a report that is in the Star on page 2. It was a meeting that was held by the Defense CS Aden Duale and Interior PS Raymond Omolo. And this was a meeting that was held in Garissa, a town called Masalani Town. Okay? That is Garissa County. Now, if the attack in Mpeketoni was 9 years ago, did we need to wait for more officers to die for us to talk about modernizing the equipment that we use?
Apparently, yes.
Or are we saying that we modernize them, but we are now needing to modernize them further? Because perhaps it has been noticed that the terrorist attack, they themselves have also upped their game. What they were before and what they are now are different. So for us to meet these demands, we need to improve on our capacity. Now, if you look at what we spent, I'm looking at the 2021 budget, it was $1.18 billion US, which is around 1.12% of our GDP. That's what we spent as the Ministry of Defense budget. I am aware that an audit is never done, and the government, as a matter of security, does not talk about the equipment it has. But every year, the same amount, it's usually 1.1, 1.2. If it goes up, it's 1.15% of our GDP is spent on the military. I'm asking the question, does the military have a plan for periodically modernizing its equipment? Or does it wait for something drastic like this to happen for it to see or talk about modernizing? We've had issues around some of these defense equipment, whether it's vehicles in the past. We've had helicopters which we were told we bought, some which didn't even move. I mean, we've had stories galore, and they're like horror stories. When you hear of what was spent, you actually want to say that perhaps they're not true. But they're stories that one hears. This time around, how then do we ever determine, given that the budget and the spending in this particular ministry is secret, how do we ever know that what we are told has been bought and has been spent? How do we know that they actually buy these things and spend money?
But remember, City, we hosted the chair of the defense Intelligence and Foreign Relations Committee of Parliament.
We also hosted the CS for Defense.
But the chair of Defense in Parliament said, actually, what has been said out there is not true. They have visibility into the expenditures.
Who is we?
The Parliament. Even the Auditor General has visibility into expenditures. This thing of saying that the money goes into the military and then nobody knows how it's spent is not entirely true. What is some element of truth is, in some cases, the tendering is not public. But the process, sometimes they'll do single sourcing and it will be documented why, but this is what we received and this is how we spent it. That one day, the Auditor General has access to that information. The Parliamentary Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations and Intelligence has access to that information, which also means that once the Auditor General has access to the information, the Public Accounts Committee and the public have access to the information.
They have access, but they can never talk about it.
They do. What?
Now,
they can never talk about it.
No, they don't talk about it, because are you saying that the Auditor General has people who are experts in
military work?
Yes, exactly. And in this committee, we had the chair, a very knowledgeable gentleman, the MP from Belgut, eloquently explained these matters. But in those committees, how many people are experts who can be told, we bought an M15ZYX, whatever that is, and this is what it is, and this is what it looks like? Do they know when they're told this is what it is?
Do they need to be?
Yes, they do. When you're talking about the security of a country, there is need for verification and there's need for determination. Because these things cost,
you see,
an arm and a leg.
Parliament has access to all other resources. Parliament has powers to actually call in an expert and ask questions if you seek to. Same thing with the Auditor General. The Auditor General can't actually have technical expertise in military, in defense, in health, in agriculture, in all those things.
Why not?
Because the Auditor General is auditing expenditures.
Yes, you don't have experts who can verify and determine these things. I like what you're saying.
You don't have to employ them.
Yes,
the Auditor General,
you can call in experts.
I have an expert on health. So anytime we're doing the numbers on health, we expend.
All right, I concede. They can bring consultants who are experts. When you're talking about the security of a country, it is not possible to ask too many questions. Not possible, because every time there is an attack, Uganda is seriously militarized. They have one of the most potent military forces in East and Central Africa. They were attacked. They're now chasing the perpetrators into DRC. Okay? We have a military, a well-trained military. We are told they are well-equipped. I can assume the equipment involves uniform, and we see them wearing uniform, so we can argue they're well-equipped. What we're saying is that beyond that, do they have the wherewithal to be able to understand and do what is necessary in protecting the country? I also know for a fact that they never talk about what they prevent, because the attacks they prevent are more than what we hear. The damage that they actually prevent us from receiving are more than what we hear. I understand all this. I'm merely asking the question.
Whether they are technically equipped to.
Yes, and whether
the military.
Yes, military. I'm talking about military.
Whether the bosses in the military are experienced enough, knowledgeable enough to know what the country needs.
Not the bosses. They know exactly what we need.
Because those are the ones that make the decisions.
No. It's not that whether they know. They do know. I am asking the question, when they say this is what we're doing, is it done? It's a simple question.
Okay.
Is it done?
So then, and done to specifications, and you're saying
yes.
So the people in the military who are using this stuff anyway, that they would know, wouldn't they know?
If you are never told, then how do you know?
I don't know what you're asking. I have no idea what you're. Where are you going?
Where I'm going is this. When you spend this enormous amount of money, okay, we really need to know, or I need to ask, whether we're actually going to buy all these sophisticated weaponware that we keep talking about that we're going to buy, and whether they will meet the needs that will suffice to provide us the security we need. That's really what I'm asking.
Whether we get value for money.
That's what I'm asking.
So Parliament appropriates budget and says, for our defense and national security, this is how much.
Yes.
600 billion shillings.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
So it goes in there.
Yes.
Now, the question is, are we getting value for every shilling?
That is the point. Okay. Remember, we had a scandal in this country in a previous government when the same military, we had issues to do with some ship. We had issues to do with some high-level intelligence that was supposed to have been procured by somebody who specialized in these things. And an issue arose. It came to the public domain. That's how come I know about it. I am simply saying we had in a previous government, again, stories. I knew because I read it. There's some helicopters called Puma that were actually bought. Okay? Every time.
And what was the issue with the Puma?
They were not what they said they were. They were supposed to be new, they were not. Then there was a story of how we procured some fighting plane. Jets.
Fighter jets.
That's what I meant to say. Jet fighters. Jet fighters.
Oh, wow.
Then it turns out, from what I read, if that report was true, we didn't buy them. Jordan gave it to us. So
then you're asking, where did the money go?
Yes, because we're supposed to have bought. So I'm simply saying, do we use the money that is intended to keep the country secure and is spent on the military? Is it used for what it is purpose for? Do we get value for money? That's the simple question I'm asking.
Okay, it's a good question. And that's why I think the importance of that committee comes in, all right? It's a departmental committee on it's in defense, intelligence, and foreign relations. They cover a lot. They cover NIS, they cover the military, and they cover foreign missions all over the world. It's a very important committee. The thing is, that committee should be so powerful that they actually have the powers to ask questions, demand answers, and get the answers. And when they don't get the answers, then there's repercussions for it. You see, the members of the committee, they are capable of actually being those things that you're saying, being capable of asking questions, being capable of demanding answers, being capable of properly oversighting, and not feeling like, they're playing second fiddle. These are general who's come in, and general has walked in, Major General has served in the military for 40 years. How old are you again? Oh, yeah. I was in the military when you started working, or when you went to school, and I've been in this one for this time. They can ask questions anyway. So I get your point, sweetie.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I want to look at something and ask a question. In the prevention of certain diseases that would be carried from parent to child, do you think that a mode of prevention would be that these two individuals then do not procreate? If you find out that you carry a certain gene, can you prevent a child then from getting a disease if you do not procreate? Would the fault be on you if you knew that you carried a recessive gene and you still went ahead and procreated, and that child got a disease for which they would suffer untold for the next 21 years? If they made it past 21, they still have the burden of possible death on their shoulders because of this disease. That's a question. The ministry has advised couples to test for sickle cell before having children. If we're looking at the prevention and management of disease, sickle cell is very big and growing in certain parts of Kenya today. And this is one disease that you look at children getting that is 100% preventable if you do not have children. You get what I'm saying? Now, I know in Nigeria, for example, because of the high prevalence of sickle cell in certain regions, it is mandatory by government for you to go in and get tested to see if you carry the gene. If you carry it, they advise you. If you then go ahead and get married and have children, you realize the weight of that on your shoulders well in advance. Ministry of Health in Kenya today is saying, go get tested. If you find that you are okay, then please. But they're seeing that the prevalence of sickle cell is growing. And
so are they advising everybody in the country or people who are hailed from specific regions?
Okay, let me tell you. Acting Director General for Health, Dr. Patrick Amoth, has said that at least 14,000 children are born with a genetic disorder every year as a result of affected couples not knowing their status. Statistics from the Ministry of Health show that NCDs, which are non-communicable diseases, account for 55% of hospital deaths in Kenya, while over 50% of hospital admissions are related to lifestyle diseases. So he was speaking during a public awareness event in Vihiga County. So there are certain areas, just like in Nigeria, there are certain areas, environments which will then have people predisposed to sickle cell. Unexplainable in, for at the naked eye, but medical science has shown that they can see these areas, people are more prone than to being born with sickle cell. People carry the gene. Now, if you carry it, most times it's recessive in you, but if you marry somebody or you procreate with somebody who also has the recessive gene, almost guaranteed 100%, your offspring will have sickle cell. So now, speaking in these areas where people are predisposed to carrying the gene, Dr. Amoth is saying, we are urging you to get tested and know your status. Because if you know your status, there is no reason why you will get married or you will then try to have children with somebody else who also carries this gene, because your children will be born with sickle cell.
Wow.
The question is, you can prevent it if you are a carrier, right? Are we saying that if you are a carrier and you also want to procreate with somebody who is a carrier, we can say don't, because your child will have sickle cell?
It's a big question, that one.
Yes, it is.
Because if there's a higher likelihood of a certain area, people from a certain area actually having sickle cell, then the inferred advice here is do not marry someone from.
Yes. Don't get pregnant.
If you come from here, do not get a partner from your same area.
No, if you come from here and you know your status, that you carry the gene. If you're a carrier and you marry a carrier, 100% your offspring will have sickle cell. If you carry the SA and this person carries SS and you have a child, your child will be SS. Guaranteed. It's not maybe.
How long does it take to do the screening?
It's a test.
How long does it take?
It's you walk in and come out that day.
Okay, so it's as simple as that.
Yes, it's a very, very simple test for you to go and see which gene are you carrying. If you are carrying, this is it.
If you have the gene at birth, you'll stay with it.
Yeah, anybody who has the gene was born with it.
Okay.
It's resident.
It's resident. Yeah.
So why not start testing children?
I agree, 100%. You should test children. You should know what you have.
So you grow up knowing
that this is my.
Yes.
The gentleman we had here, Alan Pamba. That organization he works for, among the things that they actually manufacture are equipment that do this sort of testing. So what the beauty of research science is, things that previously were considered to be beyond reach in terms of prevention or treatment or cure, they have. Mothers who are HIV positive, there's a drug called nevirapine. That nevirapine reduces significantly the possibility of that mother transmitting and infecting her unborn child with HIV. Now, the problem with many of these things is that most people who might benefit from it don't know. So beyond simply making the statement, there's always need to continuously communicate so that people know and they understand where it is they can get that help, or where they can get that test. Because if it's available and people don't know where to get it, it is not useful.
Absolutely. It may sound controversial, but the thing is, and then if you know, why would you want to make the decision to bring a child into the world that is almost guaranteed to die by the time they're 5 or will suffer until they're at least 21?
Have a very painful existence.
Very, very painful experience that could end up in death, or they live a very, very compromised immunity during the period of their lives.
I think it's all about awareness. Remember when we visited KEMRI and there's a program that's dealing with this particular one?
Yes,
right?
Yes.
And they've been doing a lot of research and a lot of awareness in the community, especially around Kilifi and neighboring counties.
Yeah.
It should be something that is done by the ministry. This is obviously, it's a preventive and promotive health directorate, and at the county level. That this is awareness. So come, please get tested, just know. And if you have it and you meet a partner who has it, just be aware that it's best that you don't get a child. As he says that, Dr. Amoth, I hope they can pick it up.
I hope so.
It's 8 a.m. Good morning. More conversations coming up.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. Interior CS Kithure Kindiki says the ongoing differences between IG Javed Koome and the National Police Service following the promotion of police officers is unnecessary. Appearing before the Parliamentary Security Committee, Kindiki said he'd even taken it upon himself to approach both officials on the matter.
I have made it clear to those two institutions that that process must be regularized within the law, whatever that means, and it must be done not in the public glare, so that we don't erode further the esteem, dignity, and public confidence in our institutions of national security.
President William Ruto has said 4 million children across the country will benefit from the school feeding program. He said the government will increase the number of children benefiting from the program from the current 1.6 million to 4 million. Speaking during the launch of the Nairobi County school feeding program at Roysambu Primary School grounds, the president said 5 billion Kenyan shillings will be used to implement the program. President Ruto at the same time said national government will construct 3,500 classrooms in Nairobi County at a cost of 3 billion shillings. And the third phase of the post-mortem exercise on the boards that were exhumed at Shakahola Forest will start today. Chief Government Pathologist Johansen Odor says at least 93 bodies were exhumed in the 10-day exhumation exercise that started on June 6th. So far, the death toll has hit 336 bodies. The third phase of the postmortem exercise starts the same day when controversial Pastor Paul Mackenzie and 29 others are expected back at Shanzu Law Courts for a ruling on whether the state should continue holding them for another 60 days or not. And police in Kiani, Changamwe, Mombasa County are probing an incident where the body of a baby girl was found dumped in a gutter by the road. Kiani Chief Ben Baraza said the body was found wrapped in a sheet. He said police are searching for the baby's mother, even as he raised concern over similar incidents in recent days. According to Baraza, another baby was recently found abandoned by the roadside, bound in a towel, but alive and well. And the government wants the United Nations and other agencies funding refugees in Kenya to prioritize local farmers when procuring food aid. Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi said buying grains from Kenyan farmers will provide a ready market for maize, rice, wheat and other foodstuffs and prevent post-harvest losses attributed to seasonal abundance. Speaking in Nairobi during a government development partners dialogue forum on the Shirika plan on the resettlement of refugees in Kenya, Mudavadi said by buying locally, aid agencies will also demonstrate appreciation for Kenyan sacrifice in hosting displaced communities. And 5 startups in Kenya are among 25 African-based startups which are being selected to join the 55.6 billion shillings Black Founders Fund by the Google for Startups. The third cohort from Africa will be among 40 startups selected from Africa and Europe to join the fund, which targets to address systemic racial inequality in venture capital funding by providing equity-free grants and mentoring to early-stage Black-led high-growth businesses. The Kenyan startups, who stand to benefit from Black founders by accessing funding to help them scale and expand the new markets, include Uza Point, a web-based point of sale startups which helps digitize bookkeeping in the informal sector; Jumba, which has developed a business-to-business platform for construction sector; and To Shop, which is an e-commerce platform for group buying of daily essentials in Kenya. And President Joe Biden now says the threat of Russian President Vladimir Putin using tactical nuclear weapon is real, days after denouncing Russia's deployment of such weapons in Belarus. Biden called Putin's announcement that Russia had deployed its first tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus absolutely irresponsible. Last week, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko said his country has started taking delivery of Russian tactical nuclear weapons, some of which he said was 3 times more powerful than the atomic bomb the US dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
8 o'clock and traffic still coming in heavy on the Thicker Superhighway this morning. It's getting out towards the CBD. Not slowing down also on Kiambu Road. That's still pretty heavy. There's a beehive of activity in and out of the city. We're looking at it coming out of Westlands. It's still busy on James Gishuru, and quite some then coming in from Naivasha Road, touching a little bit on Gong Road, which is busy in both directions as you're coming and going from the city. Langata Road is busy. We're looking at Raila Odinga Way, taking off some of that, and then going out towards the City Mortuary roundabout. It's heavy on Aerodrome, then trying to connect with oncoming traffic from Uhuru Highway, so that's all busy. This quadrant of Jogo Road, touching it from Outer Ring, Lunga, Likoni, busy as you seep over onto the Southern Bypass. Who's this? This is North Airport Road. It's busy getting towards Outer Ring and then out towards the Eastern Bypass. We're in traffic hour proper, likely to last for an hour or so. Let's know what's going on where you are, and then let's talk on Spice FM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
Thank you very much for choosing
This
us
is the Situation Room. The
Kenya's biggest conversation on Spice FM, online and on KTN Home. Have you downloaded that app, the 911 Group app? City, tell them why.
Well, every once in a while, life doesn't quite work out the way you planned, and you have an emergency and you have a problem. You are peacefully driving to one destination and you get stuck. And your car gets a mind of its own and it refuses to move. What then do you do? Or somebody falls sick and you're in the middle of nowhere again. 911 offers you that peace of mind that is brought about by the knowledge that when you call them, and it's at the touch of a button, they will respond. Whether it's your road rescue, whether it's an emergency service, they will respond. That's why I said it is a perfect description for peace of mind.
Peace of mind.
Yes.
Knowing that you've got somebody watching over you.
Yes.
Somebody who's got your back.
Yes.
Throughout. Hiya. We are now going to discuss the conversation that has been, of course, grabbing the nation's attention and energies for the last X number of weeks, and it's going to happen for a couple more weeks. And this is the budget of the Republic. Yesterday, members of Parliament burnt the midnight oil, literally, and they passed the finance bill. They discussed it clause by clause, and in the very end, the person who was finally at the chair, the Gilgil Member of Parliament, gave a report to the Speaker of the National Assembly. The Committee of the Whole House, Mr. Speaker, has deliberated on this particular bill and has passed it with several amendments. So that's it. Business done. Government has budget for the next financial year. We are now joined by Wangari Moikia, who's a public finance management specialist at EGCL Institute. Good morning, Wangari.
Good morning.
Good to have you after like 3 years.
It's not been 3 years. It's not been 3 years. But
Okay.
it's been a while, it's true.
It wasn't 3. No, let's make it 6 then.
Is that better?
You're like the finance bill. You're just angry.
If you don't like this one, how about that?
Let's give you options.
Yes, let's give you more options. Good to
Yeah.
have you back.
Thank you for having me back.
Karibu sana. City has the day's proverb, and this week's proverb, City are from?
There's this country in East Africa. You may have heard of it. It neighbors Somalia. It neighbors Uganda, Tanzania, and the Indian Ocean.
As well as Ethiopia and South Sudan.
Well, those other countries come in as well, yes. It has many neighbors, that country. It's called Kenya. Yes. So the proverbs for the whole of this week come from the country of Kenya. Okay? No matter how tall your grandfather is, you have to do your own growing.
Truer words have not been spoken. Although I don't know if everybody practices it. I think essentially it's you or we need to stand on your own feet. You need to chart your own path. Although genetics does play some role, if your grandfather is tall, there could be a possibility that you could be tall, and maybe that talks to perhaps like generational wealth.
Yeah, but you have to grow.
Yeah, but you still have to grow. Yeah, yeah.
You went into genetics, there's something called recessive genes. There may be someone in your lineage who was not so tall. And that
it could manifest.
That by chance may fall on you. So everyone is tall except you.
I know, it does happen.
And then you are not so tall.
Yes. And everybody says stories about you.
And then they even question, Kweli?
Huyu ni wife familia kweli?
Father is there. Ask your mom. Everybody say, ask your mom.
Ask her where dad was around this time.
It's the mother who knows.
Maternity is a matter of fact.
Yes.
Paternity is a matter of choice.
No, paternity, it's a matter of faith.
It's opinion. Wangari, so the conversation around the finance bill and the conversation about, the budget has been the big one. Yesterday, members of parliament actually sat through and went through clause by clause, introduced amendments, voted on each clause. In the amendments, several amendments were being introduced. Some were passed, some were rejected. And then we now have a finance bill. Now, let's start with that basic one. What does it mean when we say we have a finance bill?
So essentially, a finance bill is it goes hand in hand with a budget, right? So a budget lays out what your plans and expenditures are for the year, what you want to spend on salaries, what you want to spend on infrastructure, like things like education, agriculture, etc. Because you have to function during the year and you have to provide services and you have to live, essentially. The question is, how do you finance them? How do you pay for those things? And then a finance bill essentially lays out a plan for how it's going to adjust taxes, fees and levies, adjust them or introduce new ones or delete old ones that may not be appropriate to finance that bill. Now, the finance bill is actually a very particular animal. It's actually called a Statutes Amendments Act, right? So what it does, it picks taxes from different laws around in the legal framework and changes the values and definitions and structures within those different legal frameworks. So if a layman just decided to look at the finance bill, it would be so hard to understand because it says this adjusts section this of the Tax Procedures Act. So you have to go to the Tax Procedures Act, you have to look at it, you have to edit. So it's not a very accessible document. But thank goodness we have a lot of firms and CSOs and the like who actually break it down for us and say, this is actually what it says. So the finance bill, now the Finance Act, is how we're going to raise money to finance our expectations for the year.
Okay. It has a firm start date, right? It comes into effect, on the 1st of July, does it not? Does it also mean that it has a firm end date, 30th of June, the following year?
It should. And actually, the way it is in the law is a budget. Typically, it's the budget first that is deliberated, and then after the budget, I think about a month after the budget is when the finance bill is reviewed. So you agree on the budget, you say this is what we want to do, and then once everybody agrees on that, then now they say, okay, this is how we're going to finance it. A peculiarity, I guess, of this year is that we tabled both at the same time, for better or for worse, because I know there was a lot of interaction on the finance bill, which was excellent. I think we've not really seen this kind of level of engagement. I think it speaks to a lot of the work that has been done in sensitizing people, but also people are like, hey, there's something wrong. We need to know where you're taking this money. Plus, all these scandals are happening. We need to know what's going on. Sure. But there was a lot of debate around the Finance Act. But I don't think there was as much debate around the budget to ask ourselves, where are we spending? Maybe it's a result of the budget process. The budget process starts, essentially in August, right? Yep. So, and there's different levels of participation. So the assumption is that people have engaged with it enough and understand, what is in that budget. I think the reality is probably people do not really know what's in that budget, but are more concerned around how much are you taking from me this year, how much are you taking from my paycheck?
Sure.
Now, linked to that, even though essentially what should happen is that, yes, people are taking, or the government is taking X amount from your paycheck, but the reason for existence of government is that it takes an amount from your paycheck, so it takes from this side, but it should give you on this side. Yeah, so I'm taking 30% from you, from your income tax, so that now I can provide you education, I can provide you social security, I can provide you, agriculture, whatever it is. Yeah, and our challenge here in Kenya and in many other countries, but particularly for us in Kenya, is that we don't necessarily see that linkage. Yeah, we pay so much from our resources, but when we go on the streets, we're finding the roads mostly unpaved. We're going healthcare. We're just seeing scandals. We can't get healthcare paid for. The plants are not growing fertilizer. Kenya Power is taking an extra amount. So that linkage is becoming very hard to identify, to align.
Okay, so the finance bill essentially will then dictate how you will spend, where the money will come from. Outside of that, so this is, and for me, it's aspirational, isn't it? Because you're not sure. You will say that we will get from here, here, and here. If the conditions being set out at the point where all of that is being tabled, if the conditions remain as we have forecasted, then we will get. It is aspirational. It is not castings. It is not sure. What happens then to still remain sound if that money that you seek to finance the budget then is not forthcoming? For example, the money that KRA was supposed to collect until June 30th has not been realized. And in the last reading of the budget, we knew that a certain amount of money would come from KRA collections, domestic tax collection. So if that does not happen, what does that portend for this bill, which has been set out to finance the budget? Are you left in a lacuna status in terms of paper? What does that mean?
So this happens to us every year. It happens at the national level, it happens at the subnational level. We say, this is our lovely budget, this is what we want to do, and this is how we're going to raise the resources for it. And then throughout the year, we raise resources, but we never reach the target. We never reach our targets. So what happens, the way government operates is that, government still spends. As long as you have a budget, you can commit expenditures based on that budget. So people will say, okay, in this budget, I'm going to build a road, right? So they build the road on the promise of payment. But if you don't reach your target, there's a chance that you may not get, the contractor may not get paid. And then that results in a pending bill. That gets carried over to the next year and should be paid in the next year. But we've been having a lot of challenges with our pending bill arrangements. So we've never been able to reach our targets, but we also have supplementary budgets. So every time we have to revise and say, okay, we're not able to reach this. Even the revenue estimates sometimes are revised, and sometimes that comes late in the day. I mean, the other day we were just doing a revision of the finance bill, and this is like a few weeks to the end of the fiscal year. So they keep revising and revising. So even if we've had so much debate and engagement around the finance bill and the budget, this is not the end. We, in a few months we may see edits to that finance bill, and I think if we've been as engaged now, we hope that people will continue to be as engaged in those supplementary processes.
What is best practice? For example, how many supplementary budgets should ideally be brought forth by a government within a financial year?
There shouldn't be many. From a fiscal discipline perspective, there shouldn't be many. And actually, we just did what's this assessment called the Public Expenditure Financial Accountability Assessment. And one of the parameters is how often does a country revise its budget. And the parameters, I think, it's if you get an A if it's less if you don't, you get a B if maybe it's once or twice, you get a C if it's more than twice, and then from then on. And so it ideally should not be more. You shouldn't edit your budget at all.
Already we're at C.
But I think once
because we are talking about the third supplementary budget,
and that's already now starting to stretch it. It should not be 3 is already starting to have signals of fiscal indiscipline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should there be it happens. So we see at the beginning of the financial year, this year, for example, revenue projections are at 2.8 trillion shillings. Then you'll see progressively that being revised and mostly downwards. In the last financial year, we started at 2.5. We went to 2.1, 2, and the actuals are likely going to be about 1.9. Okay? What should that tell the budget makers, the policy makers and the budget makers about the capacity to raise your revenue and therefore about how much you should target for the next financial year?
I mean, people have been talking about how this particular budget, I think, raises the target by about 17%, right? Historically, we've never been able to reach even the budget that we've set for ourselves. And so then we start revising downwards, as you said. So I think revising downwards, so we should be telling ourselves is we need to be a little bit more realistic about how we set our budget and how we set our finance bills. We have, and sometimes it's a bit puzzling because, everybody sees these trends. We have very, very smart people in Treasury. We have smart people in the ministries. But sometimes you wonder if this is just a tool to, it can be used as a political tool to say, these are the grandiose things that we're doing. And then when when the spotlight is off, you start to revise downwards because not many people at the end of the day say, we didn't reach our target. It's only maybe the technical people who notice those things. But everybody else is focused on the big numbers at the beginning of the year. So, fiscal discipline is a challenge. We need to be more realistic. But there's a play between politics and technical, right? So the politics sometimes at the end of the day wins, and the technical people, in as much as they try to push back or propose other things and do the analysis. I worked in Treasury before, so I'm very confident in a lot of the people there. But you find some of their proposals don't see the light of day because the politics does what the politics does.
I'm looking at fiscal year 2021-2022, and we saw at the end of that year that there was money that came in from the World Bank, which was going to then allow for budget completion, right? So there was money that came in form of a loan that was then going to be able to use to complete the fiscal year. Yeah. Now, as you say, we see the trends over and over and over again, year on year. Meeting the budgets has been impossible. But still, in the next year, there is a number added on top of another number. And we talk about there are folks who know what should be done. Why then? It doesn't make sense to me. Why would you know very well? We have not made budget for last year. In August, the budget process really kicks in. Why would you have such an inflated budget if you know very well you can see the end? We've not reached it. Why would you make something even put something even larger on top of the shoulders of an economy that is already having a difficult time to then be able to raise domestically or internationally. I would want to understand the sense behind that. I don't get it.
You know, you alluded earlier, you said earlier, some of these documents are aspirational, right? So we say, even with the budget process, you go around the country and you talk to different people and different stakeholders, and they push and say, we want this in our budget, we're going to do this here. And then you couple that with GDP growth. They say, okay, now our GDP could do better. In fact, we are exporting more. In fact, the rains have been good this year, so we think that it will be strong. So we think that we're going to be able to generate this income, and we're going to be able to reach to meet our expenditure needs, to meet the budget. And so it can be a mix of, you have to, what you should do is actually look at the trends, see what has happened in the previous years. Also look at the current macroeconomic indicators, GDP, what inflation is doing, exports are doing, current account, etc. And then even global, because the global market also affects our economy. So it's a mixture of those things, but it still doesn't make sense why we keep increasing our budget. Another thing government keeps talking about is, we're going into fiscal consolidation. But fiscal consolidation is two-pronged, right? So you have to lower your expenditures as you increase your taxes or your revenues, so that now together you're able to control the fiscal deficit and control inflation. But all we're seeing is taxes going up and up and up. We were told at the beginning of this administration that the expenditure was going to go down, but we're seeing it going up in the same trend, the same growth rate as previously. Now, maybe you understand, the new administration were making promises that they didn't really understand what was happening, but you wouldn't expect that the growth of the budget would be at par with what the growth has been before. Maybe it should be less, maybe tempered.
Sure.
And then we hear all the stories about, it really is disheartening when you really seeing how Kenyans are being taxed and a lot of money is coming out of their pockets. And by the way, we're not even talking about the counties. Counties are also there ready for own source revenue. They're like, once you finish here paying your PYE, we also want you to, So,
ukinunua mboga, unalipa tax.
Exactly. So, I lost my train of thought, but I think all of those things start to play into the thing.
Is it possible? I mean, we talk about it here. Maybe we can be accused of pontification, but we talk about it all the time, and we say, look, it's absolutely possible for you to cut down on expenditure. Some of these things we see being spent, because this is right where we are right now, where the country is. Is it possible for a nation, taking all of these things in consideration, you have the public service to take care of, you have state offices to take and departments to take care of, you have ministries which have dockets, from here till the middle of the galaxy, to take care of. Is it possible for a nation, for a government then, looking at your fiscal liability, responsibility, to say we are going to reduce significantly on expenditure and actually survive and now start to claw to get to a place where you meet budget? Is it possible?
I think it's possible. If you look in the Uhuru years, if I may call it that, even the Kibaki years, there was a lot of investment in infrastructure. And as you know, infrastructure is very expensive, which is why we got into the loan situation, and now we have the SGR, the superhighways and things like that. But now we're seeing a shift to more, with this new budget, we're seeing a shift to prioritization around the social sector, so agriculture, education, health, etc. And those according to what I've seen in the budget documents, we're not doing a lot of infrastructure development spending there. It's a lot more kind of recurrent spending, grant making. We talked about the community health workers. We're talking about HELB and all of those things. Those are not really capital intensive. So if capital intensive projects have kind of been dealt with, and we're kind of doing the repercussions of that is paying the debt, then we can see a tempering down of the budget, because you're not going to, of course you still have to maintain and continue with making sure that the infrastructure continues to work, but it wouldn't be as the initial sunk cost of building the actual road. So there is space for rationalization. But the other thing is, I remember hearing Wanjiru Gikonyo talking about this once, about budgeted corruption. And budget corruption can be a really tricky animal because, rent seekers and different types of individuals in that space actually pre-identify projects that they want to earn,
to be involved in. And so they, even at the beginning, corruption has become so sophisticated. So even when you look at the budget and you're like, oh yes, we are going to build a dam, this is fantastic. Maybe the costs of that dam might have been cheaper if we had done it the proper way, as opposed to someone who is like, we're going to do it this way, and this is how much it costs, and this is how much it's going to be our cut. So if we are able to interrogate the budget, and also projects that are stalled, there's a lot of that. There's staff hiring freezes. There's a lot of things that can be that looked at that can help us reduce our budget. It just can't be that if we assume that, or if we see the way we've been spending previously has included potential corruption scandals and misuse of resources, or inappropriate use of resources, that if we are in a situation where we're looking at that and repairing that we can't rationalize the budget down. Let's take a break and then we continue the conversation. 8:30. This is a Situation Room on Spice FM and KTN Home and online. Wangare Moikia is our guest this morning. She's an economist, trained among the best, worked in the big ones, the IMFs, the national treasuries and such. And now she heads an institute called the EGCL Institute. She is here. She's our guest. We're looking at our budget making process and our public finance management. And as we take this break, think about how much has been passed, in terms of the budget at a national level. Just remember, counties are next. Counties also have to do their budgets. They will also have their own finance bills at the county level. They've got to seek ways of raising their own source revenue. That will be another conversation. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Thank you very much, Eric, and it's good to be at the Situation Room.
Always a pleasure coming here. This is the most challenging interview panel in Kenya. You guys are very well informed, and as you can see, Charles today, very philosophical.
To be poor in this country is the greatest sin you can commit, not just from a legal perspective, but from life generally. It is very, very skewed.
We've just heard on the floor of Parliament, just most recently, a leader within the ODM saying that sisi ni ng'ombe is a baba. Which means that you're willing to be milked dry.
You cannot force me to believe. I'll give way. If it's land that I'm told to return to you, I will. Okay? Because the court has said so. But I'll continue saying, watu wamenirusha. That's all that I'm doing.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
All right, so we're looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning at 14, highs of 22 and lows of 14. It's 17 and partly sunny in Nakuru, highs of 25. 21 will be the high in a mostly sunny Nyeri at 15, and it's 16 and sunny in Eldoret, highs of 23. 25 and sunny in Mombasa, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 30 in a sunny Malindi at 24. 21 and cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 27 in a cloudy Kakamega at 18. Sunny conditions in Kampala, highs of 27, and it's sunny at 25 in Dar es Salaam, highs of 31. 5 and sunny in Johannesburg, and Lagos is partly cloudy at 25. It's sunny at 20 in Kinshasa. It's go to highs of 31.
Spice up your life.
Busy on the Thika Superhighway as you come down through that Utali drift out towards the CBD, and then touching on Murang'a Road, you're fine getting into the city. Kiambu Road still pretty busy, and we're looking at Limuru Road coming in from United Nations Avenue. some of that as you then approach Muthaiga. It's busy on James Gishuru. Wayaki Way seems to be quite something this morning. The Northern Bypass, always with bits and bobs of traffic, still doing that thing this morning. All right, this is Langata Road, and there is a problem on the Southern Bypass this morning. Not quite sure what that is, but it's bumper to bumper from the Ole Sereni Junction to the Langata Road Junction. It is in both directions, trying to find out what's going on there. But if you can avoid the Southern Bypass for the first time in forever, please do so until we find out what's going on. If you know, let us know. This is also affecting traffic then on Langata Road that is going out towards the city. Problem on the Southern Bypass this morning, let us know what that is. Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The conversation continues with Wangari Moikia, PFM specialist with EGCL Institute. Wangari, you've talked about, it's possible for us to rationalize our budget, spend less. Mm-hmm. And then you're faced with a reality. Reality number one is the law. Mm-hmm. Not less than 30% of that budget must go to development. Mm-hmm. And then you are then faced with the other reality. The people that you have working for government that you need to pay, the expenses that you need to pay, the recurrent expenditures. Then you add in the debt that you have to repay. So, for example, if you look at the expected expenditures in the next financial year, about 1.7 trillion going to debt. Something like that. Then now put in salaries. Add everything else that you're doing, fueling vehicles, paying electricity, blah, blah, this and the other. That obviously has already hit over 2 trillion, Bob. So if that equates 70%, you add another 30%, you'll end up with a very high budget. Plus, you have to think about the promises that you made, the pledges that you made. You campaign on a certain platform, you've got your administration, and these things that you wanted to do, you have to start them now, or else you won't finish them. How then do you rationalize a budget? With all those realities, political realities in place.
There's some direction that was given to us. I hesitate to call them conditionalities, but I guess that is what they are. You look at interactions with the IMF, and they've pointed to some areas of rationalization or consolidation. So there was the issue around Kenya Power and Kenya Airways, because they are partially state-owned. And the question is, should they continue to be partially state-owned? Is there a path for them to just be privatized and to continue their provision without government stake for government? Plus, it's also it can be very draining to our resources. There's also a question around whether our wage bill is too bloated. Yeah, do we have too many people working in government? That's exacerbated by the fact that we have issues around ghost workers. We have issues around emoluments that include allowances and per diems and those types of things. And I think there's a lot of space for us to think about how we can rationalize along those lines.
Politically, how realistic is it?
Politically, it's difficult. I mean, not many people have been able to do it. But at the end of the day, those are the hard choices that a government needs to. I mean, the government already has made some very hard choices. I mean, they stripped away the subsidy on fuel, and at the petrol station, we're paying really high prices. We're seeing a lot of austere measures being introduced into our lifestyle.
Are they really austere, Wangari?
They're austere in the sense that a lot more is coming out from us to kind of maintain our lifestyle. So I think, for example, removing the subsidy, in my view, is not a bad idea, because I don't think we should persist in a kind of a market distorted environment. But at the same time, doing it that way already tips people into a precarious situation.
There's this situation that has brought about a lot of debate, and we keep talking about, and that's taxes going up. The rationale seems to be if people are taxed more, the government ought to collect more. Meaning, the more you expect citizens to pay, it should translate into you getting more money. Question number one, does it really translate? Because if we talk about austerity measures, I would assume austerity measures involve spending less. Now, when you say the government has removed the subsidy, we are saying the government was spending on this subsidy. You know, this subsidy, the fuel thing, I never understand it. And the reason why I don't understand it is because I look at fuel, the cost of fuel landed, all those God knows how many taxes that are heaped onto it at the end of it, whether it's road, whether it's this, whether it's whatever you call it. Then the government says they're subsidizing. What exactly are they doing to subsidize this fuel? What do they do? Because I am of the lay opinion that the person who goes to fuel their vehicle is already paying. So if they're paying,
how is it a subsidy?
Yes, exactly. It's something that I find puzzling, but I'm told it's a subsidy. Okay? I also find it puzzling when we are told that some country has, for instance, donated fertilizer to us free of charge. And then the government says that they're subsidizing this free fertilizer and that they're only going to charge 3,000 or 3,500. These things I find very puzzling because subsidy, the way I understand it, you collect taxes from us. You remove these taxes to prevent certain costs from being what they are by paying into it, either by reducing the taxes or by paying whoever it is who produces it, or by enabling them through whatever instrument you have so that the eventual cost is less. That's how I understand it. But evidently, I don't understand this thing at all. So, if we are saying we are being taxed, if we are saying we now have a budget and we know where it's at, and we are saying that we've set in place things that are supposed to help us raise more money, are these taxes necessarily going to translate in the government actually collecting more money?
That's a good question. And if you take a few steps back and you think about what we've been trying to put in place to make sure that we have good tax policy, is actually to put in a tax policy, right? Taxes should have certain characteristics. They should be predictable, they should be neutral, they should be simple, there should be equity factors in there. So if we have a tax regime that every year keeps wildly changing, it becomes very difficult in terms of an investment environment for people to want to invest here because, it's unpredictable. You may put a heavy investment in the country and then the next year that heavy investment is loss-making because a tax has been applied to it. So tax policy, I think, is one of the key things. I mean, although it is policy, it's not law, right? So, but it should give us some direction. And the government also talked about a medium-term revenue strategy to put in place so that we can have some predictability when it comes to how the government raises taxes or revenues. But now the question around if you increase tax rates, does that mean you get total an increase in total tax? And that's not the case. There's a concept in economics called the Laffer curve, right, where there's a point of maximization of total revenues that you reach. If you increase revenue rates more than that, you actually get less revenues because you start having tax evasion. People start putting their money in different instruments outside the country or whatever it is. Yeah. So the expectation of the hope is that the good people in government have been doing this analysis and asking themselves, well, at what tax rate can we maximize our revenues? If you look at the tax regime right now, it's terribly complicated. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I read it and I'm a professional in this space, and it takes me a while before I can actually penetrate what is happening. And that is not good for an economy like ours.
I want to go back to something that you touched on that we keep having a conversation about. I mean, people throw it at us all the time in terms of, well, Kenya is not the highest tax country in the world. But you pointed out something that, look, if you're going to collect, then there should be reciprocal measures that we see on the other side. Taxing to the point whereby there's certain things then that the citizen should not then have to go out of pocket again to achieve, whether it is medical care, whether it is education, whatever it is, that you should actually see that, for example, the majority of your school-going children go to public schools because the infrastructure is so solidly founded. Because of this money that comes from taxes, you can make sure that you have proper infrastructure, that people do not have to go and seek further private medical insurance because the public system works. But right now what we are seeing is that the majority of the money that is collected, that is said will be used to finance budgets, is going towards the payment of debt. So it is impossible for those things to happen at the measure to which they should be happening because the money goes towards servicing debt. How do you turn around, how should a responsible government begin to turn around that situation? Because the truth of the matter is, no matter how thin we slice it, no matter what color we try to paint it, that taxes collected in this country do not go towards the first thing that they ought to be.
You're 100% right. And I always have a challenge with that because in places, in jurisdictions, and a lot of European countries fall into these categories, they're taxed out the wazoo. People are paying like majority of their money to government. But on the other end of the scale, their schools are excellent, top in the world. They have healthcare. They go to university for free. They go to primary, secondary school for free. Buses sometimes are free. Yeah, so all the things that they would be paying out of their own pocket, actually the government is providing. And that would be a scenario that we would like to see, even to some extent. I mean, you don't have to do everything. Yeah? Just give us something. Show us, if you're taking from one side, give us on the other side. So I think that can be a challenge.
That is where we let our leaders off the hook. We don't want some of it. We want all of it. We want a plan.
CC doesn't want just the
No. We want all of it. We want you to tell us the plan you have and how we're going to get it. It can't all be given to us at a go. We get that, but we must know. In this year, we will get this. The larger plan is for us to get this. Next year, you will get this. The following year, we will get this. Because in all these intervening years, there is no time we are not paying taxes. When you introduce anything new, there is no time it doesn't impact our lives, none whatsoever. So essentially, we participate with you in this process. We do our bit. Now, your bit is, remember, we're not saying, tell us that this is what we're saying. We know what we need. Health, education, these are basics. Tell us, when it comes to health, this is what we are going to get. Don't tell us UHC. That's not telling us anything. That's telling us there is a map. Okay, map for what exactly? How are we going to get it? And when will we get it? And when you say we've got it, what are the indicators that we'll have received it? So we know this year this is what we get. The following year this is what we get. Now that makes sense. So when we pay, we know, last year they said we're going to get this, we got it. I'll be very...
But it's all there.
Yes.
CT. It's all, like if you look at the budget policy statement, if you look at the budget, it says this is how we're going to spend our money. The trick is, how do you link the finance bill with the budget in a meaningful way, right? So if we're saying, okay, the government is now prioritizing the social sectors, we're seeing more money going to agriculture, health, education. You're like, okay, fantastic. That seems like, it seems to me on the face of it that I will be able to afford now these things because I'm paying for them. Now I should, in this year, be able to achieve or go to school. But the thing is, if you look in the budget and say, okay, we're spending more in health. What are they spending in health? You look at the budget policy statement, we're hiring more community health workers. okay, how does that help me? Like, okay, yes, that will help people in the community health workers largely are in Mashinani, going to houses and homes and supporting with healthcare. Yeah.
Yes.
So kind of a fast level of health. But
yes,
how is that really helping? Like if you say, okay, we're doing more in the value chain in agriculture, because this better thing, the bottom economic transformation, whatever, talks about value chain. Okay, I'm giving money now today. How is this value chain going to help me today in this year, right? Yes, there is merit in saying we're building something. In the next 5 years, we should have it. But the truth of the matter is the pinch is being felt now. So how are you providing a safety net or some sort of reprieve for me in this year for me to be able to survive and be able to have that resource going forward for me and my children?
How would you prescribe, though? I mean, I think that's the question. That we see the problem, we see the hole, we see the gap, and we say, okay, this is not what it should be. So even if we were to say, I mean, if it was Ongari in that seat today, a professional of your own right, and saying, look, here we are with this problem, what would be the one thing that you say, let us then introduce this to then? Because look, we can even assume that maybe they don't know. I mean, I refuse to believe that they do not know what could be done in terms of solutions, but let's just assume that, okay, maybe we can shed light on that, because sometimes when we think about the solution, that gives you a little bit more hope, right? What could be some of the solutions that we talk about? If they say, look, we're going to put money towards this, whereby it's not helping the now, what would be a solution for the now? There's a report today talking about 19 million Kenyans who are living in poverty. A third of the population today in Kenya lives in poverty. If I don't know what would be a greater slap in the face to a government today than that. So the question is, what can be done for the now? What are some things that can be done for the now?
I tell you, what can't be done is building you a house. I think there's much been said about the housing levy and this 1.5 tax thing. And sometimes it also helps, it puzzles me, because some of the policies or the ideas really are not congruent with what makes economic sense. Yeah. So if we say, yes, we're going to take 1.5 to do the housing levy, because people are poor, there are 19 million people in poverty, we need to make sure that they're housed. Fine, you build someone a house. I give someone in poverty a house. What have you actually done? Right? This person now has to pay property tax. This person now has to pay elec. This person has to get furniture. This person has to really invest in that household for them to actually call it a house. You can't just give a person a shell of a house and then purport to have housed them, right? So that actually might even sink people further into poverty by not being able to, take advantage of the resource that they have been given. So linking, I think if it was me, I would try to make a better link between, first of all, looking at the investments that have already been done. We've borrowed so heavily for these roads and for SGR and stuff. How are we going to... And the promise was that our economy was going to thrive, right? What are the challenges or the obstacles to achieving the thriving of the infrastructure that we've invested in? Yeah. So how do we start to build upon that infrastructure? How do we use the social sectors? How do those social sectors then benefit from the infrastructure that we've built? How does that affect us in the economy at large? So even as they're talking about value chain and linkages, I don't really see evident linkages between what we've invested in and what we're doing now. It seems very much in the narrative is very much like, oh, that was at the older regime, wale walifanya hivyo, let them, in fact, they messed up the economy. Now, us guys, we're doing this. Doesn't make sense for us to be like, we invested in that, now we're done with that. Now let's go here and do this. There must be some linkages to what we're doing so that we build upon what it's just like if you build a house. You're building a house, you build a nice sitting room, a nice kitchen. Then just about to build a bedroom, you're just like, see, we wanted a swimming pool. Let's go build a swimming pool. Hauna kitanda, you don't have a bed, you don't have you have to be focused. Build upon what you have, and then as you go, maintain what you have, and then expand.
One got to consider this, huh? This conversation we sometimes have here, I like them and they make sense to me. But the thing that concerns me, how does the person who has slept hungry understand this conversation? This is, I think, what you're saying. How does it relate to this person? Because, yes, it's a plan. Yes, there's a structure. Yes, there's a framework. Yeah, we get all that. But translate it into the day-to-day lives of the citizens of this country. How exactly do they see this money of theirs working for them? How is it demonstrated? Today we're talking about food, feeding children in schools. And it's only in public schools. And we're commenting that it is interesting that this area of Imara Daima, Lindi, you go up to Pipeline, you don't find any public school. And you wonder, the population there is tremendous. So now, what should we be concerned about? Building more schools, ensuring that people actually, meaning there are conversations within conversations. And as you speak and as you say as an economist, what you people try to do is to understand that with these resources that we have, how do we equitably divide it so that people get to benefit from this? Now, but before people benefit, should they not understand this thing? Because where I was going with my conversations, I feel when the government communicates, they're communicating to some people who understand what they're saying, but the Mwananchi doesn't get. I'm speaking about myself as a Mwananchi. I don't quite get how it is I'm supposed to benefit from all this. I hear the conversation, and I'm told I'm going to benefit. I hear that, but I don't see the manifestations of this benefit and how it will come about. I do not get.
Well, it should be evident, right? Ideally, if you have, if you have a budget,
immediately,
and people are invested in the budget making process, and assuming people understand what the government or the regime, local government, whatever, have promised them. And you go for, if you go Mashinani, you find a lot of people actually where they participate. They go for the barazas. They say this is what we want, but the challenge is, even as they voiced what they want, they don't follow up to see whether if what we have said we want is actually in the budget. So we say we need a new town hall or we need a new morgue, and the guy is like, yes, we've noted it down, but the next time they interact with the budget is when it has been passed, and the assumption is that, we asked for a morgue, they said they noted it down, so we expect that there's going to be a morgue. Not really understanding that actually the budget is a negotiated process, right? If you want a morgue, then maybe you're not going to be able to have a school or something like that. So those kind of balances, sometimes citizen engagement, citizen participation is increasing, but it is not yet at the level. We have things like, even if you have a citizen budget, a lot of people don't speak English. Maybe you need to translate it into, and that costs resources, and the government is cash strapped,
the government is cash strapped.
Yes.
Which government?
Our government is
this one.
Strapped,
No, they're not strapped. They seem to have money for everything except things which
really matter.
Yeah, there's always money for all sorts of things. I mean, there is absolutely no sign that we're about to grind to a halt. I mean, a few salaries delay here and there. So what? People get paid at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, the government, it's a finite budget. It's a zero-sum game, right? So if you're going to do one thing, you can do another.
Does this government understand that this budget is finite? Because if I look at the activities of this particular government, it's like...
they're doing things.
Yeah, if you just keep spending, don't worry, more money will come. So you just go ahead and spend because more money will come.
There's a point that the two of you are raising, and this is, whether as the government is initiating these projects, as the government is allocating money to these projects, people actually understand the benefit and whether they can translate and feel the benefits immediately. And it just takes me back to the Kibaki. So we talk about the golden Kibaki years. When Kibaki was campaigning, even as far back as 92, 97, he kept talking about revenues and our revenue capacity. And he was talking, actually, he focused on, he balanced it between, we collect a lot more than what is announced, so there are leakages in revenue, and we have a capacity to collect even more.
And so collect and retain even more.
And retain more.
Yes.
And so that's why we saw, now looking back, we saw the revenues rising in the Kibaki years. But he also talked about what needed to happen. When the roads were being constructed and people were being disadvantaged, just being moved from where they are and experiencing dust and delays, people were wondering, these roads that this man is doing, how life is expensive. I need unga today. Why is this man focusing on building, putting tarmac? What's tarmac going to help me with? But then now, later we realize it. So maybe it's the same thing even for the previous administration, for this current administration and future administrations. It's what you're doing is futuristic, yes, the value chain approach and all those things. But how do you get the population to move along with you, to understand that this one you may not see the benefit of it now, but you will see the benefit of it in 3 years' time?
I think it's true. It's kind of like make it make sense, right? So you say, and unfortunately, this is what happens. You people have needs now. People are hungry now, and if you're investing in a road, it may not really make sense to you why your hard-earned shillings are going to that asset, but eventually it does. Yeah, but I mean, I think most of us had a good idea that this was infrastructure was expensive, and we were paying out the wazoo for it. But at the end of the day, I don't know if that's an allowed term on radio, but
I'm smiling because I have really no idea what it means, but it sounds okay.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we know that our roads at that time, our roads were really bad. Our cars were suffering from it. We were not able to get our goods from point A to point B without spending exorbitant amounts of money. And now it's much cheaper. So we kind of knew that this was a good investment. Even though we complain, we know this is a good investment. And then now we say, okay, now how do we then build upon that? And maybe to some extent, the government has thought about it. If you think about agriculture, some investment is agriculture. Now access to healthcare may be easier in terms of actual physical access. Thinking about, tertiary education and things like that. If there are linkages from that perspective, I think they need to make it a little bit more obvious. One thing that has also come up, I keep thinking about it because it's been in the news about the NHIF and the challenges around NHIF. Yeah. I did a lot of work in the counties and I went to see how they're dealing with NHIF, and actually the challenges are immense, and I hope that we can talk about that, I think, after the...
Come again soon. Right?
Oh, actually, after next time.
Don't take 3 years to. Wangare Moikia is a public finance management specialist. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Keep it here. More conversations coming up. It's 9 a.m.
Good morning. This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. The Senate Special Committee formed to hear the impeachment of Siaya County Deputy Governor William Oduol is expected to start its hearings today. The committee, led by Elgeyo Marakwet Senator William Kisang, will hear the matter against Oduol for 2 days before submitting a report to Senate Speaker Amason Kingi. Oduol, who was impeached by Siaya MCAs for alleged abuse of power, is expected to appear before the committee to defend himself. Oduol was ousted after he started quarreling with the county boss James Orengo. According to Orengo, Oduol is not fair and the Senate should impeach him. On his part, Oduol has denied the allegations against him, saying his political enemies are trying to spoil his reputation. And Defence Cabinet Secretary Ednah has announced plans to modernize the Kenya Defence Forces and police artillery in a renewed move to bring an end to Al-Shabaab attacks both in the country and neighboring Somalia. The equipment will include sophisticated armored personnel carriers with the ability to detect improvised explosive devices along the areas under their command. Speaking in Masalani town after meeting elders and community leaders on security matters, Duale said that the government will no longer allow any terrorist attacks in any part of the country. At least 22 officers have died in the last 2 weeks in Garissa and Lamu counties, while one suspected Al-Shabaab terrorist was arrested last Thursday along Garissa-Dadaab Road by a multi-agency team. At least 3 people, including 2 police officers, were killed in an ambush by Al-Shabaab militants at Tarbi area in Guba Ward along the Banisa Ramu Road in Mandera County. 5 other officers were injured in the incident. Police said the incident happened when the vehicle the officers were traveling in was hit by an improvised explosive device, marking yet another deadly attack in the area. And police in Athi River, Machakos County, are investigating an incident where a man was injured while allegedly vandalizing Kenya Power and Lighting Company transformers. Rafael Monzia sustained serious injuries during the botched transformer vandalism incident within Waridi area. On June 18, the incident was reported to Athi River Police Station as an attempted vandalism. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has recovered 11,493,000 shillings stolen from a training center in Wasingishu County. According to the anti-graft body, the money was stolen by the institution's former principal, his wife, and former district accountant. The three are said to have withdrawn the money in a period of 3 months. The former principal, who had not at the time handed a signatory role to the school's new principal, continued to make withdrawals. The African Union Commission, through the Peace Fund Secretariat, has signed an agreement with the World Food Programme to scale existing technical and financial support to various peace and security activities in thematic areas of operation under the African Union Peace Fund. Under the agreement, the Peace Fund Secretariat and WFP jointly identify the areas of strategic engagement to scale activities in early warning, conflict prevention and mediation. In the latest arrangement, Peace Fund Secretariat and WFP will scale efforts in advocacy on the nexus between conflict and food security as a call to action to address the root cause of conflict, strengthen institutional support for the Peace Fund Secretariat, enhance collaboration on preventive diplomacy and mediation, share periodic reports on thematic areas, enhance joint resource mobilization, collaborate on engagements on the ongoing review of global financial architecture, enhance collaboration with think tanks and regional economic communities on the Peace Fund thematic areas. And parents of students missing after an attack on a school in western Uganda are flocking to the local police station to submit DNA samples that could identify their children among the 42 bodies that have been recovered. One of Uganda's biggest massacre in recent decades occurred Friday night at Lubirira Secondary School. Assailants set a dormitory full of boys alight, then attacked a dormitory full of girls, hacking victims to death with machetes and knives. 6 students were also abducted by the attackers, who the authorities say were fighters from the Islamic State-affiliated group based across the border in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Regional Police Commander Tai Ramadan said many of the dead bodies were shot beyond recognition, forcing investigators to use DNA samples from relatives to try to identify them. And at least 8 people were killed in fighting outside Parliament in Somalia's semi-autonomous region of Puntland between local security forces and armed militiamen loyal to opposition politicians. The clashes in the state capital, Garowe, erupted during a parliamentary session to debate changes to the local constitution, which the opposition claims is a bid by Puntland's president to extend his term in office. This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto, good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 5 minutes after 9 o'clock and we still have some traffic on the Thika Superhighway this morning. Still looking pretty busy. Kiambu Road said, no, I'm not joining you guys on that thing today. We're going to finish this thing real quick before 9. And just like that, traffic on Kiambu Road is done. It's dusted. It's finished. The folks on the Southern Bypass this morning are having a bit of an issue. What is causing that issue is still unbeknownst to us. But there is bumper-to-bumper traffic from here to there. It's all the way to the Langata Road junction, and there's traffic now spilling over towards, this road is called what, where there is Magadi Road. So there's Magadi Road, there's Langata Road, there's the Southern Bypass. Look at that, all the way through, and not quite sure what's causing it. Guys, please let me know. So if you can avoid it for now, please avoid it so that you don't get stuck in that, and hopefully it can be out of it not too long from now. Let's talk on Spice FM KE on Twitter. Somehow keep things moving this morning.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
How are you doing? On to the final hour of the Situation Room this morning, and also on to the final hour of me reminding you today to download the 911 group app. This is important because you're basically dealing with a company that's more than 25 years old in this country. It's been doing a lot in the country, and they are called the 911 Group. They have several branches. One of them is the motor vehicle rescue services. Number 2 is they provide vehicle alarm services. Number 3, they provide other alarm services. They also do several other things, including offering you guard services. But now they tell you, sometimes you're in a situation where you need to raise an alarm. Maybe you're at home and there's a security incident, and then you do not have a panic button installed in your home. But then you have a phone, and you have downloaded this 911 app onto your phone. All you do is you pick up your phone and you raise the alarm with them. 911 will then be able to dispatch a response team to come to your home and address that security incident that you have. Right?
Just from
because there are many people who just, there are people who have this panic button. The panic button is connected to a control room in a security company, or it even has this siren outside your house that will blare in the middle of the night. Others don't have all these things. But you have your mobile phone, there's a security incident, and you're hearing some movement, and you're wondering where the movement can't even scream. Take your phone, go to the app, raise the alarm. It's like that. And it's just like that. And because using your GPS locator, they can tell exactly where you are. They will be able to respond. They will be able even to chat with you, and they can dispatch a team to come and sort you out. Symbol 911 Group app on your Play Store or on your App Store. Dr. Alex Kamau is the guest whom we've had before. He's a business consultant and a university lecturer. He's our guest again today. Dr. Kamau, good morning.
Good morning to you, Eric.
Karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much for having me once again.
Very good. You're here because we want to talk about borrowing, and particularly focusing on domestic borrowing and what's been happening in the markets in the last couple of weeks, going back into months, maybe even into years. And then projecting what's likely to happen in the next financial year. With this high budget deficit, we are definitely going into domestic borrowing again. What do we expect to see? To welcome you to the conversation, CT has the day's proverb.
Our proverbs for the whole of this week, now the weekend's on Friday, our proverbs are from Kenya. This same one, not the other one, this one. No matter how tall your grandfather is, you have to do your own growing. That's a proverb. Grandfather tall, very good. You grow.
You grow.
You grow.
But
you grow.
It is your job.
Your grandfather has grown, we know, because he can't grow. In fact, if anything, he might shrink. But you...
Dr. Kamau, what do you think these Kenyans are trying to tell us?
No matter how tall your grandfather is, you yourself, you need to grow. Or you have
do
to
your
grow.
own growing.
Yes. I think that talks about that as a person, you don't have to depend on the credit or the ability of other people, even if they are your family members or your parents. You have your own journey to walk. You have your own space to occupy. You have your own legacy to live at the end of the day. And this most likely, I think it fits in areas where maybe a child has got a very strong financial background, and he's usually told that he shouldn't look up onto the wealth of the parents, but he should work very hard so that he creates his own wealth. That's my understanding.
Very good understanding. Higher. Let's talk about our borrowing, okay? So we are at a position where we are looking at what we call a budget deficit in the current financial year that's ending in 9 days' time. When the National Assembly first passed the budget last year, there was a deficit of about 600 Was it 800?
Yeah, it was 830.
It was 830 billion shillings.
Billion shillings.
That means the National Assembly allowed the government to go and look for this money in the market.
Yes.
Borrow.
Yes.
Talk to World Bank, talk to China, talk to Dr. Kamau in the market. Whoever you get the money from, you borrow and you'll repay. We are closing the year with a deficit that's shot up beyond $1 trillion.
Yes, yes.
Which means we have borrowed more than what we had initially said we were going to borrow.
Yes.
A large proportion of this has been borrowed domestically.
Yes.
Now, what is domestic borrowing? How do we borrow domestically? Do they come to City and like, City,
ile something.
Niko na kashida. Kuna walimu hapa hivi wanakaa wanataka mshahara.
Kuna shida.
Kuna kakitu. Niko na kachek.
Yes.
Kuna kachek na ngojea ikiiva.
But meanwhile, we should clear post-dated.
Is that how the government does it?
More or less the same, but they use a different tool.
Yes.
That is called treasury bonds. Treasury bonds, we have treasury bonds and we have treasury bills. Treasury bonds is when the government borrows long term. That is, it issues a financial instrument whose maturity term is more than 12 months.
Okay.
It can be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15, even to 25 years. When it wants to borrow short term, it uses treasury bills. Treasury bill is a financial instrument whose maturity term is less than 12 months. It could be three months, it could be 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months. So that's how the government borrows locally. Last year, the budget deficit was 830 billion. The government had proposed to borrow locally 500 billion and to borrow internationally 330 billion. But what you have just said, Eric, is that we have borrowed more than that in this year that is supposed to end in the next few days. The reason we have borrowed more than that is because of the same reason that we will borrow more this year compared to what the government said in its budget. Because the government, the budget that you have just read, it says that we will borrow about 720 billion Kenya shillings. But that is not very true, because there is another 850 billion that we will borrow. The 850 billion is the amount of loans that we will borrow to repay the principal loan that is falling due in the next financial year.
Sorry.
Yes.
We'll borrow Jack.
That last thing you've said, that
Yes.
the amount of what will do what?
What the government is saying it will borrow, the 720 billion shillings, is to repay the interest on the debts that we already have. The interest only. But now that has not factored in that we also need to reduce the amount of the principal debt that is existing.
Okay.
You see? It's not just me.
No, it's not just you.
Yes.
It's like there are 2 debts here.
Yes.
And the way Dr. Kamau is going, there are going to be 3 debts. In fact, we might even get to 10.
Yes.
Debts falling due means
yes,
whatever we borrowed.
Yes.
Are we still paying the interest, or are we supposed to pay the entire sum we borrowed?
It's a good question. When you are repaying the loan, you are supposed to pay the interest that is supposed to be paid.
Which
within
accrues from it, yes.
That has accrued from that debt portfolio that you have.
Yes.
And also to repay a portion of that debt,
portion.
Principal debt. Because if you keep paying the interest only, then you will never end or exhaust that debt, because you're only servicing the interest.
So what you're discussing, or what you're saying here, has to do with what is contained in the understanding we had, the contract we had, the documentation we had when we were borrowing.
Yes.
So it means we had agreed that over a period of time, we'll be paying interest at this rate.
For sure.
And then when it comes to this particular time, we'll now start paying the interest, but plus also beginning to pay off the principal sum.
That's true, but there are 2 types of loans. Like now, the Eurobond operates in the way you have just defined. That if we take like the Eurobond that we took in 2014 of $2 billion US dollars to do the SGR, it is a 10-year Eurobond, that we will pay the principal amount of that $2 billion US dollars 10 years later. That is now next year, because we borrowed in 2014.
We'll pay all of it next year.
All of it.
Pay 2 billion.
2 billion.
On the 10th year.
On the 10th year. But every other year, heading to the 10th year, we'll be paying the interest on that Eurobond alone.
Okay.
Which was about 7%.
That's what we agreed on?
That's what we agreed on.
Okay. Now, just so that I understand,
yes.
We knew from day one when we borrowed we were going to pay this.
Yes.
Have we been putting money aside to pay for this as we do everything that government does in terms of collecting money from us, taxing us? No, I'm just asking because we need to pay this thing so we know on due date, because from what we've been told, there are these things that exist in the treasury where it's not me or somebody coming. There's just a button which you press and the money goes where it's supposed to go. Okay? So that money has to exist.
Is that the expectation, Dr. Kamau, that in the 10 years, you as a government will then be, putting some money in a reserve account in anticipation that you will raise 2 billion shillings to pay? Principally.
Yes, that is the preferred and the best practice in terms of financial management. That you should be putting aside a certain amount of money in anticipation that in the 10th year, it will not come to you as a surprise that you are required to pay the 2 billion, but you will have put a sinking fund. Actually, the correct name is a sinking fund, so that you match the income and liability, you align the two. Actually, what you would do is that every year you put 10% of that 2 billion euro bond into a sinking fund that is also generating some sort of interest. So every other year you put. And for instance, the first year that you put the 10%, you will invest and say, this 10% amount of money, I want it to have a maturity term of 10 years. So that you are trying to match this first investment you have done with the maturity of this 10-year euro bond. The second year you save the 10%, you will say you want to invest for 8 years or 9 years, 7, like that.
So you reduce your liability. So that at the end of those 10 years, you are cushioned against paying this huge amount because one, you've put the money you're supposed to pay aside, but at the same time, you've been earning interest.
Exactly.
So it sounds like we've been doing that then.
Not really.
Because you have just said that we are going to borrow 850 billion shillings towards this 200 billion shilling debt.
Yes.
That means we have some 1.2.
The 2 billion US dollars is actually translating to about 267 billion dollars
at the current exchange rate.
At the current exchange rate.
Wait a moment. So are you telling us that when we borrowed the money, the dollar was exchanging for definitely something less?
Exactly.
We didn't peg it to that exchange rate.
No, we shouldn't. Unless now we buy. Unless now we buy another product, which is called a future. A future is a product that you'd say, I'm expecting to exchange this currency with this other currency. But if the exchange rate, for instance, Kenya shillings versus the dollar today is 140 shillings for $1. And probably in the next 6 months, I want to exchange, to repay a certain loan using the foreign currency or the dollar currency for this matter. So because in 6 months, we are not so sure how the currency will have behaved in terms of exchange rate, probably by that time, it will be exchanging 200 shillings, Kenya shillings, for $1. So today, we might agree, today it is at 140. In the next 6 months, we are not so sure. Can we fix it at 170? But there is a commission for that you pay for pegging and locking the exchange rate. Because either way, if it is at 200, the exchange rate is at 200 shillings per $1 at that time, you will benefit. But this other person will lose. So for him to take that risk, you also need to put a consideration on the table.
The underlying assumption here is that you're hoping the exchange rate will favor you.
Yes.
So that at some point, for instance, the exchange rate between the dollar and the shilling, you will find that it was at 120, and probably now after a few years it's at 100, isn't it?
Yes.
Really? And how often does that happen?
Sometimes it goes the other way around. And that's why, like KQ, when the farms that usually rely on, like now KQ, the way it imports fuel, it would need to to come up with the pricing of its flights in a way that it is stable and it is assured that it will be profitable. So for it cannot rely on the way the fuel prices are very volatile. So they would say we are going to fix a certain price for the fuel, and more so in terms of exchange rates, that since we are buying fuel in terms of dollars, we want to say for the next 12 months, we'll be exchanging a dollar at this rate of Kenya shillings.
Now, Dr. Kamau, there's something that's happened in the market recently that has raised your flags.
Yes.
What is this?
What has raised my flag, a red flag actually, is that last week the government issued an infrastructure treasury bond. That is, and it gave at a coupon rate of 16%. And actually, the difference between an infrastructure treasury bond and an ordinary treasury bond is that an infrastructural treasury bond is income. The income that you generate after investing with the government through infrastructural treasury bond, that income is tax exempt. It is tax exempt. These other bonds, after you invest with the government and you are given your income in form of interest income, you have to pay tax on it. But the infrastructural treasury bond, it is tax free. And now there is something that we have been taught since primary school, that the government is a risk-free investor. That if you invest with the government, you are very safe. So, and that understanding always forms the basis for any person to make an informed decision when you are investing. So if I am to lend and do some money, I would say, if the government is giving me 16%, then to lend someone else, either a person or an entity, who I consider a riskier borrower, then I should add more a premium to the interest that I anticipate to get.
So it's actually charge a higher interest
to another. So the government rate.
If the government, the government is like the baseline.
The baseline.
If the government is giving, if the bank is giving this risk-free entity called government at 16%, all of us others have risks, so it'll be definitely higher.
Exactly.
There's no way they can come and lend me 15%. And they know everything that I'm not like government. So that's one issue. 16%. Why is 16% a big issue for you?
16% is a big issue for me because of two things. Number one is currently the banks, if you save the money with the bank, they will give you a maximum of 4% as interest for saving with the bank. But now here, the government is giving you 16%. And this 4% that the bank will give you after saving with them, it will still be subject to taxation. This other 16% is not. So actually, the banks will struggle to attract savings from citizens, because the citizens are rational investors. They will prefer to invest their money where it has a better rate of return. So in that sense, the banks will have a problem because the business of the bank is to attract savings and then to lend that money to the private sector. So if people are not saving with the banks, then the banks will have no money to lend to the private sector. So there's a problem there. And that is what we would say crowding out the private sector. So that's one way. And for instance,
people are likely not to take their money to the bank, but to lend the money to the government. Basically, you want to put money in an interest-earning account. Call it whatever. Fixed deposit, savings, blah, 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 whatever product banks have. Instead of going there, which is giving you 4-5%, you'll take up the bond, which will give you a 16% return. Okay. What are the current coupon rates for the other bonds that they have? The ordinary bonds.
The ordinary bonds, over time, the coupon rate has been increasing. Because there's and if I can finish that issue of the bank, but the bank suffer also a big risk, and that's why a month ago the three main banks in Kenya their credit ratings were revised downwards by JP Morgan credit rating agency from a B2 status to a B3 status. The reason they were downgraded.
Big commercial banks.
Commercial banks.
Okay.
I would. It is in public domain, but I may not name the three banks. But it is in the public domains.
Don't worry, we live here. So we know.
The credit ratings was revised downwards. The reason for that is because they have been found to have invested heavily on treasury bonds.
Yes, they have.
And out of the 9.6 trillion that the government has borrowed, both internally and externally, 50% of that debt is local.
Yeah.
That is about 50% of 9.6 is about 4.8 trillion.
Yeah.
50% of that 4.8 trillion is the financial institutions that have invested with the government.
Yes.
So the banks, the other financial institutions, they have invested to a tune of 50% of 4.8 trillion, to a tune of 2.4 trillion. So whenever the value of these investments, bonds, depreciate, then the banks also suffer losses. What we refer as a paper loss.
Okay.
Because the valuation of these assets will go down is because these banks invested with the government treasury bonds. Probably when these bonds, that time they were promised a rate of return of 10%. And they agreed with the government that I will hold on this bond for the next 10 years.
It's a fixed rate of 10%.
It is a fixed rate.
Because it's shilling to shilling.
Shillings to shilling.
Okay.
Yes. They agreed with the government that I'm going to buy this treasury bond and you'll give me a 10% rate of return for the next 10 years. That's okay. Then all of a sudden, 2 years later, the government has issued another bond that has a better rate of return at 16%. So every other person who had purchased that other bond, which is giving a rate of 10%, you would want to offload that investment so that you buy another investment, which is more rewarding.
Yeah.
So because every other person would want to offload, then there is oversupply of that bond. And when there is oversupply of any commodity in the market, then the prices and the value goes down. So that's what has happened. That what has made the JP Morgan credit rating agency to downgrade the status of these three banks.
I still don't understand.
Yes.
Why are they downgrading the status of the banks? Simply because they borrowed from government, or because the value of the paper that they acquired has now reduced in value?
Exactly. It's because the value of your assets have reduced in value. And the way the banks are valued is your asset base vis-a-vis the money that is out there that you have borrowed out to, that you have lent out to. You have lent out to your borrowers. So if your asset base, if the value of your asset base decreases vis-a-vis the amount of money that you have lent out, then there is a problem.
So let me just understand this.
Yes.
The government has borrowed whatever it has borrowed.
Yes.
50% of it is from external
financiers.
Yes. And 50%
is local.
Now, what is the preferred situation that would benefit the citizenry and the government at the same time?
Yes.
Would it be more beneficial if the government borrowed predominantly from the domestic market?
It is a yes and no. Because I would say, like, the reason that Japan actually was able to attain those high rate of growth.
That's where I was going.
Yes, is because the rich Japanese were able to lend the government, and whenever the government would pay those loans, that money would not get out of that country. It is within the economy. And now they would continue pumping that money into the manufacturing sector, into the service sector, and the economy would continue to grow. But
the uniqueness of the Japanese model
is
that there is also heavy government involvement in industry and commerce.
Yes.
But anyway, go on.
So, but in our case here is the debt market and the capital market is not very well developed. So if I go back to where I was saying that this year we are saying we will borrow 720 billion, but there is another 850 billion that we are supposed to borrow. And it's because the reason that it did not feature in the treasure in the budget is because I'm saying that I owe you 850 billion, but and I'm supposed to repay you in the course of next year.
Sure.
But I will tell you to roll over that debt I have with you. So basically, it will have no value in the balance sheet.
In the balance sheet,
because I will not. I will still remain to be indebted to you by 850 billion. Ideally, I should have removed that money from my pocket and give it to you. In that case, I will have reduced my debt. But in this case, I've told you, I will continue paying you interest. So because of that item is called an off-balance sheet transaction or item. It doesn't. So, but in the real terms, we will be borrowing 850 plus 720 billion.
Let's take a break. That's why our budget is 4.42 trillion.
Yes.
4.4?
4.45.
4.45.
Yes.
The actual budget.
The actual budget.
That this 3.8 is just
window dressing.
Hiya! It's 26 minutes to 10. Kenya's biggest conversation is hosting Dr. Alex Kamau. He's a business consultant and he's also a university lecturer. We are talking about domestic borrowing and the red flags that Dr. Kamau is raising this morning. The government has gone to the market with an infrastructure treasury bond with a coupon rate of 16%. What's the impact of that? Not only on government borrowing, but also on private sector borrowing and the entire financial sector. Let's discuss this more.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's that time again when we get to gather around and marvel at the great engineering, raw power, finesse, and sharing our round motor love for motoring at the annual Digger Motor Show 2023. From car lovers, bike enthusiasts, spare part dealers, insurance, as well as asset financiers and more, this year's Digger Motor Show will be one for the books. We're talking a whole 4-day event from Thursday 20th to Sunday 23rd at KICC Grounds, Nairobi, where we will have something for everyone, so you better not miss out. Get the family, bring your friends, and share in the joys that will give you lasting memories and an experience you're bound to not forget. For more information or participation, contact Caroline on 0723-803601 or email sinyandiaka@standardmedia.co.ke. Digger Motor Show 2023 is brought to you by Standard Group and Digger Motors and is powered by Spice FM.
London Mulo and DJ Absolute. When the gang is together, you know it's sugar and spice. Great vibes, conversations, a lot of humor. I like to say we don't give an F, we give 3 Fs.
You and I are in this relationship, so it is me to tell you who we are.
When you ask a chick, how many guys have you been with? She's like, including you. If it's fun, it's funky, it's fresh, you're definitely going to catch it here. I don't know what you do every day from 11 a.m. to 3 o'clock. If I were you, I'd tune in to Spice FM 94.4.
I want you on my team.
So does everybody else.
Yeah. When the engine revs, will you be ready to get all that petrol head enthusiasm at this year's annual Digger Motor Show? Well, you better belt up and make your way to KICC from the 20th to the 23rd of July 2023 for a wholesome 4-day event. Come and join car lovers, bike enthusiasts, spare part dealers, insurance, as well as asset financiers, and more for what will be an unforgettable experience by far. We are going all out to make it a great show for you and the whole family with something for everyone. So, you better not miss out. For more information or participation, contact Caroline on 0723-803601 or email sinyandiaka@standardmedia.co.ke. Digger Motor Show 2023 is brought to you by Standard Group.
22 and lows of 14. We'll see lows of 15 in a mostly sunny Nakuru at 19, and it's 16 and sunny in Nyeri, highs of 21. 23 will be the high in a mostly sunny Eldoret at 18. It's 26 and sunny in Mombasa, highs of 29, and at Malindi we'll see highs of 30. Mostly cloudy at 23 in Kisumu, highs of 28 after the rains, and it's partly sunny at 22 in Kakamega, going to highs of 27 and lows of 16. Sunny conditions in Kampala at 22, highs of 27 and highs of 31 in a sunny Dar es Salaam at 28. It's 7 and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 18 and lows of 4, and it's mostly cloudy at 25 in Lagos, highs of 28. Sunny at 20 in Kinshasa, highs of 31, and at 38 Beijing is sunny, going to highs of 40 today with lows of 21. Sunny at 19 in Paris and sunny at 17 in London, 18 and partly cloudy in New York coming into Wednesday, highs of 21 and lows of 15.
Spice up your life.
All right, so still looking at that traffic situation on the southern bypass this morning, and still pretty messy from what we can see. It's heavier as you come off that Likoni interchange, really heavy until you get towards the turnoff, then towards Langata. We're also looking at that affecting traffic on Langata Road coming out towards the Nyayo Stadium, and then all of that meets on Uhuru Highway. When somebody sneezes, somebody else catches a cold, and that's what it looks like for traffic this morning. On the Thika Superhighway, just at the Pangani Underpass is where we see some traffic, but everybody else will get into it. And we'll see what happens through the morning. Talk to us on Spice FM KE on Twitter.
Business News with Spice FM.
I'm Dennis Aseto. Alton Kenya Solar Farms has commissioned a 44-megawatt solar facility in Keseswa, Singishu County. The project was in partnership with the Private Infrastructure Development Group, the Emerging Africa Infrastructure Fund, the Standard Bank Group through the Standard Bank of South Africa and Stanbic Bank Kenya. It will provide thousands of people with clean, renewable power sources, contributing to the achievement of the SDG on affordable and clean energy, and create 400 construction jobs with 15 permanent jobs. Centum Investment Company has established the Two Rivers International Finance and Innovation Center following the gazettement of the Two Rivers land as a private services focused special economic zone. SEZ designation grants businesses within the Two Rivers International Finance and Innovation Center access to a wide array of incentives available under the special economic zone regime. The business-friendly enabling policies and facilitation services policies provide a competitive advantage for companies to stimulate investment, innovation and growth. Unilever East Africa has opened a 500 million shillings warehouse facility to serve the East African market. The 23,000 square meter facility can handle health and beauty products across East Africa. Unilever Kenya Managing Director Lak Ochieng said that the newly constructed ultra-modern warehouse will not only grow the firm's turnover but also increase capacity, job creation and community impact. Buy now, pay later company Spira Kenya has signed a deal with Loxi Kenya to allow small businesses to acquire vehicles with 100% financing. Small and medium-sized enterprises will now be able to lease vehicles without collateral or guarantors. They will also be able to get tracks. British aviation tycoon Hamish Harding, one of 5 people aboard a missing Titanic diving vessel, is no stranger to daredevil antics and has 3 Guinness World Records on his name. The United Arab Emirates-based Harding is the wealthy founder of Action Aviation, a company that buys and sells aircraft with offices in Dubai and London's Stansted Airport. For Spice Business, I'm Dennis Aseto.
Spice FM Business.
Sugar and spice and everything Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94
is still in the studio. He is a university lecturer and a business consultant. We're talking about the bond market. Says something has happened in the last week in the market. The government went to the market with an infrastructure treasury bond.
Yes.
And they are quoting it at 16%.
Yes.
And that is going to have a ripple effect
Yes.
on very many other sectors and very many other things.
Yes.
The first thing that you said is the effect it will have on the previous bonds that had a lower rate
of return.
And people were holding that bond.
Yes.
All scrambling to try and get into this new one.
Yes.
And therefore trying to sell off what they have, which means that they flood the market with that cheaper bond, which gets even cheaper.
Yes.
Okay, that is number one. Number two effect?
Number two effect, if you look to something like the real estate sector, the rate of return there is about 5%. You take an example, someone who has an apartment in Kilimani, Kileleshwa, Lavington, Westlands. That apartment is worth about 10 million. And this person is getting a rental income per month of about 50,000. That is 50,000 multiplied by 12 in a year, it's about 600,000. If you less what we call service charge, maintenance fee, and maybe sometime the apartment might be vacant, that 600,000 can reduce to 500,000.
Yes.
So 500,000 divided by 10 million multiplied by 100 in terms now we are looking for the rate of return per year, it is 5%. So
it actually reduces by more because that particular area is now saturated with many high-rise flats.
That's for sure.
So the would-be rent pursuer has more options than they know what to do with.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
And so, and then with a dwindling economy, the likelihood of people who even live there staying there is also dwindling.
For sure.
So if you own a block of flats, the likelihood of occupancy even being at 50 is a tall order.
Is a tall order.
Yes. So that percentage you say is a kind percentage.
Is a kind and a generous one. So, City, if you compare that rate of return for the real estate investments, which have been actually the darling of many investors in Kenya. So real estate is giving you a return of 5%, the government is giving you 16%.
Surely.
Would you go to the real estate?
Government.
Straight up.
I wouldn't even have to think twice.
So we are likely to see a stagnation in the real estate sector, and it has been one of the economic drivers of this country because it falls under the sector of manufacturing. So there's a challenge. Now we come to the issue of shares. Because as we have seen, the NSC on the wing of shares, it has been struggling. Many companies actually, when they declared their financial and their annual financial reporting a few months ago, actually in April, most of them they either reported reduced profitability compared to other years or even suffered losses. So the value of shares have continued to go down. And right now, the market capitation of the NSC shareholding is about 1.5 trillion. In 2021, January, it was 2.7 trillion. So the market capitation of NSC has shed value of more than 1 trillion. So what now that means is that when government is giving a better rate of return through treasury bond, you would want also to sell your shares and buy the government bond, which is again tax-free. So we will see many people struggling to offload and to offload their investment in shares. And right now, the NSC is struggling because we have experienced foreign investors' flight because they have realized that the currency in Kenya is quite unstable, and they prefer to invest in developed countries like now the US, and especially now the US that has continued to increase the interest rates that they are giving on their treasury bonds. So NSC is likely also to suffer in a big way. So
there's capital flight from Kenya because people are now going to that other, which is bigger, better, more beautiful girl called the US that is lending at a higher rate.
Yes.
So we are not even attracting more money here.
We are not attracting.
And
it's strange because I would have assumed that if the exchange rate between, say, the Kenyan shilling and the dollar or the euro dipped in favor of these harder currencies,
yes,
that an investor would find it cheaper to invest here simply because the exchange rate would favor them. But the opposite seems to be happening.
It is the opposite. You know what is happening is the Kenyan currency losing value vis-a-vis the dollar. And if the foreign investor had come here in Kenya and was promised a rate of return of 10%, for instance, you come and invest in yes.
I've got it.
You have got it.
I've got it.
Yes.
I've got it. So essentially,
yes,
you'll be losing money.
You will be losing money.
Yes.
You have been promised 10%, but the currency has lost value by 20%. So in the real sense, you are on the negative. You have gained 10, you have lost 20.
Okay. I want to understand.
Yes.
If we're essentially saying a situation has been created where in the domestic market there's surplus funds. Yes, there's money to be borrowed.
Yes.
By government.
Yes.
Why wouldn't they do that?
The problem with that is when the government is actually increasing the interest rates so that to convince the locals to do business with the government. For the longest, actually something like the treasury bills, they have the rate of return for treasury bills, the one that we said it's a financial instrument whose maturity term is less than a year. The rate of return for treasury bills has been 7%, 8%. Because again, we are still comparing with the banks. The fixed, if you save with the bank, if you open a fixed bank account, they will give you a maximum of 4%. So the treasury bills have been for the longest 7 to 8%, but now in the recent past, in the last few months, all of them, even if you are investing with the government for 3 months, for 6 months, for 9 months, all of them, the interest rate is above 10%. We say double-digit figures, and there's something. There's a liquidity preference of money. That when you are lending short term, you should demand a lower rate of interest. But when you are lending long term, you demand a higher rate of interest. But now, every other person, majority of the local investors, they are avoiding investing with the government long term. And whenever the government issues treasury bonds and treasury bills are usually oversubscribed. But people are avoiding treasury bonds because it means you will lock your investment for a long time with the government. So every person wants to invest, most majority, to invest with the government for 3 months. After 3 months, the government will give back your money. So in case there are some other changes, shocks, you are out. So the government now, to convince Kenyans to invest with them long term, now they have decided to entice them more by increasing the rate of return.
What does that mean? Does it mean, because do I detect desperation here on the part of the government? Because not only are they competing with the banks, they are doing much, much better than the banks, and they're doing much, much better than everybody else in the financial market.
Yes.
Is this a good thing?
It is not a good thing, because the banks, actually the government is kicking the can down the road. That these interest rates that we are promising investors, in the next few years to come, the debt servicing cost for the government will skyrocket. But as we are concerned about the here and now, but a few years down the line, now that's when the crisis will catch up.
This is about sustainability.
Yes.
When you borrow at 16%, and you're borrowing for development, and how long is this infrastructure bond?
It is 7 years.
It's a 7-year bond.
Yes.
What is it that they are going to do in 7 years that will earn this kind of money back?
Actually,
that you can say that you invested in dams, all right? Now, the ripple effect of having this dam here is the agricultural activity downstream that has developed the economy. That 16%, you have to at least it makes 16% in 7 years. How plausible is this?
It is almost impossible, because right now we are feeling pressure, because the last government actually borrowed the $2 billion in 2014 through Eurobond
for SGR
for 10 years. And ideally they should have pushed for that years, so that since this is a developmental investment, capital expenditure, we should have bargained for more time So that by the time when we bargain for more time, it means we are paying a lesser amount of money per year, but we pay for a longer period of time. So that one would have been more sustainable. So what the government probably would now needs to do is actually also to move away from commercial loans and increase the appetite for concessional loans. And these concessional loans are the ones that are issued by multilateral organizations, like now the IMF and the World Bank. And we try to avoid commercial loans like now the Euro bond.
You know, Dr. at that point in time, in 2014,
yes,
exchange rate was 85, 86.
87 there.
You're talking about some 50 plus. It's a colossal sum.
It is. And now what we are planning to do is to roll over. Instead of paying that $2 billion US dollars, we issue another Eurobond, so that since we have not been saving that money,
so it looks as
we
though
kick the can down the road.
Right. So it looks as though we'll forever be in this situation. It's just going to continue rotating. Whatever is left, carry it forward, borrow some more, carry it forward, have a good conversation so that somebody says, all right, we'll look at that. A new administration comes into place. You keep rolling. What is the danger of that when you're looking at it from a nation's economic outlook? What's the danger of that? Because we seem to have the blinkers on. We seem rather not to have the blinkers on, saying there's caution here. The blinkers are not on.
That's for sure. The danger in that, the worst that would happen is us going the Sri Lanka way, where we default on the sovereign debt, and because of that, the inflation increases. Like now, the inflation in Ghana is at 42%.
Yes.
And here in Kenya, the inflation is at 8%, and we are feeling the heat. So we can imagine how it is like there in Ghana. And something else that the government is doing, which is not having the intended results, is the government has been increasing the lending rate, the BESO lending rate, the CBR rate. It is now at 9.5%. Last year, at a time like this, it was 7.5%. Wow. And the government increased in an effort to tame inflation. So right now, the CBR rate at Ghana is 29%. CBR, the BESO lending rate in Ghana, it is at 29%. And nevertheless, it has not been able to tame the skyrocketing inflation there, because inflation there is at 42%. So the government sometimes gets it wrong when they say every other time there is inflation, the first remedy or cure is to raise the CBR, the BESO lending rate. Because right now, and whenever the BESO lending rate is increased, what that means is that you and me, it becomes difficult to borrow money from the bank, because
banks
the borrowing cost,
CBR plus 4.
Plus 4.
So in Ghana, you're borrowing at 34%.
At 4%. Actually, Eric, now we have moved away from that capping.
From that capping.
Now the banks are doing risk-based lending.
In other words, whatever they like.
It's
free fall.
Yes.
It's a free fall. If they think you are not good enough, they give you at 19%.
If they think you are dicey, 30.
Yes.
If you don't want, leave it.
Yes.
Hey, God Almighty.
Who makes the decision?
Yes.
On this rate, for example, when the government went to the market last week,
yes,
who in government made the decision to float it at 16%?
It's a good question. Actually, how two things. Number one is that that rate is informed by the prevailing bond yield of the existing bonds. The prevailing bond yield. Right now, the bond yield for the treasury bonds that have been previously issued by the government is at around 16.75%. 16.75%. And the bond yield is what we said that if you were to buy a bond in the secondary market, because when you buy from the government, that is the primary market. But if you are to buy from the secondary market, that bond that was someone had purchased at 100,000, right now he cannot be able to sell at 100,000. Probably he will sell at 70,000. But the person who has purchased this bond, the new owner, will continue to get the rate of interest return as the initial owner, which was so basically, if you have borrowed at 70, if you have invested 70,000, but you are still continue to get a rate of return 10% of the 100,000, so that is 10,000 over 70,000. So the rate of return now, that is what is called yield. So there's a difference between yield and coupon rate. Coupon rate is the original interest rate that the government issues at the primary auction. But when someone is buying in the secondary market, now that changes.
So the base indicator when the government is going to the market is the yield.
Is the yield
of the previous, the current bonds.
Of the yes.
All right. And that is what is currently at 16.5.
Yes.
So that informed them to come at 16%.
Yes.
Do they need to go to Parliament to seek approval to borrow, to raise this infrastructure bond, or did this approval come with the passage of the budget and the appropriations?
Last year the government had purposed to borrow domestically 887 billion. By end of April, they had only managed to borrow 497 billion.
You make it sound like it's a competition, only managed to.
Yes.
They tried their best.
Yes. They have been, we have been experiencing investors' apathy, whereby the government issues treasury bonds, but the rate of subscription is about 25%. If the government had intended to receive about 50 billion, it ends up receiving about 15 billion. So because of that, the government has been behind schedule. And that's why when it got that opportunity last week, because actually this bond, they had intended to collect 60 billion. But to their surprise, people oversubscribed. And people are willing to give the government to a tune of 220 billion because the incentive was very enticing. But at the end of the day, the government was able to take 213 billion. So there are two things that are coming into play. One is the issue of the interest rate is very high. And number two, the government changed the story midway. Because initially it intended to borrow 60 billion. But because now people are willing to lend to the government more, they took more.
Dr. Kamau, always a pleasure having you. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Looking forward to the next one.
Wonderful.
And thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room today and all the comments that we see on social media. Keep them flowing. Let the conversations continue. Have a lovely day. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life